W Pro, because that's where you have all of the
Andre.
And here we go.
10, 5, 4, 3.
Call to me, lands far away.
Elves have forests to protect.
We need to build a wall.
Dwarfs their mines. Men their fields of grain. But we Harfoots have each other.
For I must now wander this wandering day.
We're safe.
You have fought long enough, Galadriel.
No.
Put up your sword.
The enemy is still out there. The question now is where?
It is over.
Nothing is over! Nothing! You were the chosen one! It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them!
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
Darkness will march over the face of the earth. It will be the end, not just of our people, but all peoples.
Everyone! I am sorry, but their time has come.
The past is with us all. The past is dead. We either move forward or we die with it.
This could be the beginning of a new era.
Away I must wander this wandering day.
To him finally being lionized in the prime and his prime. Fuck.
Do it!
Shit.
Just do it! Don't let your dreams end. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams come true!
Luke went from being, oh no. Welcome, Slayer Nation. I have some great news for you today. I hope you're all doing great. Nope, that didn't work. One more.
You have failed me for the last time.
Welcome, Slayer Nation. I hope.
If you're tired of starting over, stop giving up.
That is eating away at what you love in order for it to shine. And one man's vision is... Sometimes you don't have to make things better for them to be great again. You merely have to Okay. Hollywood continues to slow boil the culture and crazy. Well, right now, Spider-Man actor Andrew Garfield has stepped up and he's fighting motherfucker.
I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it.
And unbearded dwarves, but Prime didn't stop there. They stapled in intersectionality, individuality, biddiga-dig-bee, biddiga-dig-boo.
So it begins.
At my signal, unleash hell.
Giant Slayer.
Welcome, Slayer Nation. How are you doing today? It's great to see you. You know, we've been doing this right now for almost 15 weeks. Well, we took a week off for Easter, but that was good. And I've never told you, every time I see y'all in the chat, you come to the show, I mean, I'm blown away by your amazing support. And I look forward to this, our Sunday get together, more than anything else throughout the week. And today we're going to have one hell of a show. You are like rocket fuel for the journey we're taking. So I want to get going. So strap in because we're about to lift off our very first guest. It's his first time here. And we're going to summon him from the annals of ancient Greek mythology because he's been reborn in the digital age. Give a big Slayer Nation welcome for the mythological, the monumental, the maestro of gaming lore and movie critique, Endymion.
Thanks for having me.
How you doing, my friend?
Oh, man, I'm tired. I'm working so much. I'm having a crazy, crazy busy day, but it's good though. I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad you're
working
here.
on a video, so
Not a problem. There's a lot of gaming news and we're going to touch on today. But before we get going, we have to get in the rest of our panelists. Now, this is her third time back. It's a lovely woman. Always thrilled when she can be here. Say hello to the ultimate tour guide through Tinseltown, the queen of truth, insight, and wit, the brilliant baggage claim.
Hi, George. Hi, Andy. Thank you so much for having me back on.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. How have you been? I saw your video, which is one of the topics we're going to touch on today, is like the death of Disney. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really enjoyed writing that. And it was thanks to the people at Film Threat. I've been talking to Alan a lot about what's been going on because he's been reporting on the D-Files. So I'm excited to get into that.
Oh, absolutely. And we're going to do that. But first, now, what I need everybody to do is get your keyboards ready so you can punch A. Now, this is a good friend of mine. Before I ever started YouTube, I used to listen to his voice. And I was like, and the very first time he had me on his panel, I have to say, for a few minutes, starstruck. So say hello to the sagacious Sheer from Midnight's Edge, the only guy who can unravel the Hollywood tapestry like a Norse saga, the Viking vision, Andre. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, and thanks for that wonderful intro. Wow, I'm impressed to meet me.
You're impressed. Oh, no, I love always your takes, and there's a lot to discuss, especially with Disney. Amazon released their Fallout, but I just learned this morning, even in the gaming industry, it seems to be following more and more in Hollywood suit. And as soon as we round out the panel, I want to get going. That's Endymion. I mean, he knows that industry inside and out. So we're going to bring in the wizardry of WDW Pro. This guy is a sorcerer supreme. He's a one-man army who can unmask all the behind-the-scenes goings on and the bottom-line dollars of the Mouse House. Welcome, WDW Pro.
Hello, and happy to be here. And yes, I must say that Andre definitely still strikes many of us with his stardom, blazing a path. But George, you now have your own path, and it is wonderful to see you doing such an amazing job over the past, what is this now? 4 months of George the Giant Slayer.
Yeah,
this is fantastic live shows.
Oh,
fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Oh, it's always a pleasure to have you here. We're waiting for one more panelist, but we're going to wait, and he'll join us up. It's Good Logic, because I wanted to get his, as a lawyer, I wanted to get his insight on this Disney, the filing they did for the dismissal on Gina Carano. So the first thing I'd like to tackle is with Endymion here, and everybody throw in what you think, is Ubisoft today announced something that kind of took me by surprise. I'm like, is this going to be how it is in gaming from now on? And I know Endymion knows what I'm talking about. Let me share it here. Here we go. Ubisoft reportedly revoking the crew from owners' libraries following server shutdown. You no longer have access to this game. Why not check the store to pursue your adventures? Endymion, is this the future?
Yeah, so what they're basically doing is they were supporting the crew for about 10 years, and then they just randomly went, oh, we're just pulling you from all of your digital libraries, essentially. You can't play them anymore. You can only play the crew now, I believe, in demo form, and then it asks you for a game key, which you obviously don't have because the game is revoked. It's the same thing that happened with Crystal Dynamics when they did the Marvel's Avengers game, and it's mostly due to licensing based. So these companies don't want to renew the licenses per se. So it also happened with Activision. They made Call of Duty. They made Transformers, War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron, and there's 2 more, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2. They lost all the licenses for those. So all those games they released digitally, they just pulled them from the store, and you can no longer play them even though you bought them. So it's setting this really dangerous, I guess, game preservation kind of what will be the word, like meta
Precedent.
Yeah, precedent.
But what
really
I want to
it's not good.
is this basically, a lot of people have been saying for years, like your movies, but get them in physical form because you don't want to have them in digital. They could basically wipe them out anytime. Is that pretty much what's going to happen? Like they can revoke this license at any time?
It's worse than that because obviously with movies, you guys just have to put it in somewhere and watch it. With games, most of the time, a lot of them, even single player, because they're essentially live service, especially Ubisoft games, you need an internet connection in order to connect to the servers and all that. So in Ubisoft's case, what they're kind of making it seem like, video games for them, it's sort of like in a really expensive movie ticket. That's the best way to put it now, right? You pay a crap load of money up front, you play it for however long you want to play it, and then they go, thank you, we're taking it back now. And it's not even just bad for the player, it's bad for the developers as well, because now they don't even have anything to show for it. You know what I mean? Like they spend all these years making something, and then it's just, we lost the license to, like, whatever it was in the crew, like we lost the license to Lamborghini or whatever car manufacturer it was that was, you know, a part of it. And they went, well, all that work you did, sayonara, it's gone. And they have the new crew game, they're probably going to do it again. And it's just, it's a really dangerous precedent. And it's, in terms of game preservation already, we have so many games that we already can't play that are just stuck on older gen consoles. Like you can think of anything that comes on the older stuff, right? There's so many things you can't play. Like I can't play Chrono Trigger from the Super Nintendo on, like, for example, PlayStation yet. You can play it on PC, thankfully, but that's one example. So game preservation is just, it's a big thing. And Ubisoft has been a really big harbinger of death in this regard. They're really trying to control everything. And think about it too. The recent game that's going to be coming out is Star Wars Outlaws. That's an IP as well. Who's not to say in 10 years, they just go, oh yeah, we didn't want to, renew our Star Wars IP. So if you own Star Wars Outlaws and all the microtransactions, you blah, 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 screw you. We'll take it back. You don't have anything now. And that's horrible.
Okay, good. Well, I'm just dying to get everybody else's thoughts, but our last 2 guests just arrived. And first up, we have, this is a New York attorney who combines wit and humor, and he's just like a stand-up comedian, but has all the wisdom of a courtroom judge. Let's welcome Good Logic.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Very kind intro. Great to see you all.
Great to see you. I know finally our schedules could mesh, because the first time you came on here, we only had like 15 minutes together.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you just 1 second till we bring out our last guest. This is the Imagineer connoisseur. We got Robert Meyer Burnett, and now we're getting ready to go. How you doing?
Hello, greetings. Hello, panel. I always feel smarter after I've done your show, George.
Thank you. Well, here's my question.
Is it because we make you look smarter, Robert? Is that what's going on?
No, you don't make me look smarter. You make me smarter just by what you guys all say, guys and gals say. I mean, it's the cogent, erudite commentary from everybody.
And before we move on, can I just really quickly say, Good Logic, as a non-American, I love seeing the American flags in your background.
Oh, thank you.
I've really been missing seeing those in our entertainment the past.
Thank you kindly. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah,
They're
I think we need a lot more of those.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Especially today.
Absolutely.
Patriotism. Absolutely. And you know what's great is that Robert is wearing something that the shirt you're wearing, Laserdisc, because we're just talking about games in the way that they were taking away your license, your ability to play. And I want to ask Good Logic, and then everybody in the panel just jump on. How is that legal, Joe? How is that legal that you buy a product like in gaming, and then all of a sudden one day they just like, no, you can't do it?
Look, this is not my area of law, and I don't know enough about the background here to try and justify the legality. And we as attorneys are very cautious about weighing in on issues that are outside our general stream. I would, as an overarching theme, I would say that a lot of the licensure that we sign off on without reading those very long, whenever you get anything in a license or you click off in accepting the terms, the TOS, you're usually forfeiting everything. And in the legal world, a lot of people claim that these are contracts of adhesion, or they try pressing the point that these are considered what's called contracts of adhesion, which means that you have no choice and you're forced to sign it, and the other side drafted this contract and they drafted terms that are ridiculously onerous and unfair. The claim of contract of adhesion works much more strongly in theory than it does in practice, because traditionally many things that you and I would assume, yeah, that's definitely a contract of adhesion, get excluded when you actually try prosecuting that claim. But usually, if you look in your terms of service, you're going to see stuff in there that's going to horrify you. That you're,
that's what annoys me.
Yeah, for example, that like you're forced to litigate it in California, in Tech Valley, no matter what part of the world you're in, and that's the only forum that you could bring in, and goes under their laws and their jurisdiction, and that you can only bring claims against these parties, and you're waiving claims against any other parties. And there's just so many different things in there which are designed to restrict your ability to actually find any redress through the court. And sadly, to the horror of anyone who actually looks at how this law tends to be applied, it tends to be very onerous, and there are all these different protections they build into just legal language that nobody reads, and everyone just clicks accept. Because if you don't click accept, you have nothing. You're not going to get in there.
Well, and you'll remember too that South Park famously lampooned this with the human Sentai pad episode, where you got to read the fine print, or else you may be eating vanilla paste at best. But I'd also like to say that I agree with Endymion, because this is more nefarious than the need to save physical media for movies and TV shows. Think about it this way. Back in 2002, Blizzard, which we would not say Activision Blizzard because it wasn't Activision Blizzard back then, but in 2002, Blizzard released the classic video game genre-defining Warcraft 3, played by millions of players, beloved, and forebearer to World of Warcraft. Then, a couple of years ago, they decided that they were going to re-release that, but they were going to update the graphics and make it wonderful. It was going to be amazing. Really, they wanted to sell it again. And so they did. They released this new Warcraft 3 Reforged game. But when they did this thing where if you owned a copy of that game from 2002, okay, not a new game, if you owned a copy of that and your computer was connected online in any way, it would automatically attempt to update that 2002 game that you've owned for decades to this new version. The problem was the new version was so broken, so glitchy, so terrible that it was unplayable. And so they literally went back and destroyed every copy of that game unless you unplug and never put it online. Never have your computer connected online. That's the only kind of computer you can play that original game on and enjoy it. So these video game companies, they are rather nefarious. They don't respect their content as art, even if gamers do, and it's a real problem.
How do we protect ourselves? I'm dying to hear what Andre thinks.
Yeah, certainly. But first of all, I actually can explain the legality of it. Okay. I can't do it in legalese, but I can do it in practical terms. And this goes exactly to what Good Logic said about what's there in all of the terms, because you have that in every single game. You have to click accept before you can even move on, every product, whatever. If you don't click accept, you can't even get there. And this is the same thing in movies that my good friend Robert Meyer Burnett can also attest to. Like in the days of DVD and stuff, before you get to the movie itself, you have to watch this boring right screen and everything. And what says there is pretty much the exact same thing. And the gist of it is that you don't actually buy the movie or the game. The exact same thing applies. So we can use the two interchangeably.
Okay.
What you buy is that you buy a non-exclusive license to view this product in the privacy of your own home. It is not transferable, meaning that technically you do not have the right to resell it or anything else. And they also technically can revoke it from you at any time. And this is what we see with streaming. This is where that happens. They can change it. They can do whatever. Now, why don't they do that in physical media? Because that's actually a loophole. because you do not own the movie itself or the game itself, but you do own the piece of plastic, which is the disc. And this is the loophole. So you own the disc, and the product is on the disc, but you technically cannot resell that. If you were to be technical, every single game company, every single used bookstore that accepts your DVDs, they're technically in violation of the law, because you're not supposed to be able to resell that. If the studio wanted to come, they could knock on your door and say, give us our disc back. They technically could do that, because that is in the terms and descriptions. You only have the loophole that you have a physical disc, which allows you to break the law by keeping it even if they don't want you to. So, for instance, releasing a patch that updates it to the current affairs, even if that happens to break it. And in the case of video games, or you do it across streaming, that is their right, and you have no choice but to accept it. And if they decide that, oh, now our rights for something in this has expired, now you don't get it either, that's their right. Physical media, and you keeping it is a loophole, and one that we must be tremendously grateful for. This thing that Endymion was talking about, this has actually happened many, many times before. Like, for instance, Outrun, classic video game with the Ferrari driving around in LA, right? Well, for a while there, they didn't have the rights to Ferrari. And then the car was replaced with a random generic similar looking car for all of the releases while that was happening. Another example is the game Revenge of Shinobi. Many, many different licenses in that one. And that game has also changed many times over, depending on which license they have and which has expired. You want to keep the original, it's locked up in physical media, which technically you are not allowed to own. But again, loophole.
And
the original disc.
The key about what Andre is saying here is the term licensure license is really is the devil's playground for these massive corporations. We're even seeing this, by the way, the term licensure being applied to physical real estate. Like now, when you rent a commercial space in New York, you don't even get to rent the space, because that entitles you to some sort of level of possession. The way they'll frame it is the entire thing is owned and completely controlled by corporation that owns the building or manages the building, and you have a license to go into this space that you believe you're renting. You're not technically renting, you're licensing the space out from them. That's how nefarious the use of this type of legal control is being asserted by massive corporations. So if you're seeing that on a physical space level, it's all the more so with respect to what Andre and the panel here are discussing when it comes to there's no such thing. You don't own anything in a video game. You're not renting it. You have no possession. All you have is their permission to wander in and do whatever it is that you're poorly purchasing, and those rights for you to retain that are far more easily revocable and modifiable based on how they update the game or whatever it is that your particular unit is interacting with online. And because you just have a licensure, which basically means, this written permission that they presumably are not going to revoke or modify, but retain under the legal language in those TOS, the authority to do so, that's what gives them carte blanche to pass legal muster, to have the ability to basically dick you around as much as they want.
So what you're saying is you will own nothing and you will be happy.
Precisely.
That's what I'm getting
from
from
That's what I was going to say.
Yes,
that's what.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people don't understand.
Supposedly,
that when you buy,
is knocking on hell's door, and like I don't know if you saw this, but I saw this on X today that there are reports that I think Mario Nawfal put out there that there are reports that he's he's about to basically be greeting the devil in imminence.
Well, he has a
Not come
daughter
soon
that's
enough.
going to continue his work, just like Soros. Like his son is even worse than
Worse than him. Andre hit it on the head. But I think it's how do we protect ourselves? I think Robert has been preaching this for years. Isn't that right, Robert? Physical media, physical is the games. How do you do that though with games since they're not most of them aren't
There's
physical?
no way to do it unless you had a massive uprising of people saying we refuse to accept these terms, no matter how great the allure is of this product. And by the way, this applies to your phones. This applies to everything that we have. You know, everything that you use that you consider that you've paid more than $5 for nowadays tends to be something that you have a license to use rather than you actually owning it.
It sucks because like you can buy games now, and like there's actually a lot of games nowadays. If you buy them physically, the disc itself means nothing. You put the disc in, and then it just downloads the game digitally from the store, and then the disc is basically just there as a
coaster.
Let's say like almost like a key to get into the hotel room. You know what I mean? Like that's all it really is.
Yes. That's the perfect way of looking at it. It's a hotel.
Removed the loophole. But let's hear what Robert has to say about this.
Yeah.
Well, look, you know, when I got my PlayStation 5, one of the first games I got, because I love racing games, was the Hot Wheels game, the Hot Wheels driving game. And with about 10 minutes in, I realized that you can't get very far in this game without microtransactions and upgrading your car. And it really pissed me off because it was the first time that I'd ever experienced. I've been hearing about microtransactions in games. You spend $60 on a game and you figure, great, I want to play it. Oh, no. To get through the game, you're going to spend another $60. They have you completely over a barrel. And it made me stop and think, okay, you're going to buy something and you're going to pay $60 for it. For the longest time, the video game industry, that was great. A PlayStation game was $60. If I wanted, I'd buy it, and you can get it later on the secondary market or get it from GameStop for half price a year later or whatever. That's no longer true. And we're seeing throughout our entire civilization, especially here in America, that every single corporation is trying to raise prices or make more money from all of us in some way, shape, or form. Eventually, we only have so much finite income to spend. And every single group, like video games, you'd think $60 is enough. Like, how much profit do you need? You've got people that you want to keep playing, and $60 for gamers was about the level of where they were comfortable. Now you can't even do that. So we're seeing industries start to collapse. Hollywood is collapsing now. You know, people went all in on streaming because corporations are like, well, if we put stuff on streaming, we don't have to make physical copies and ship them. You know, we can completely control all of our material. No one's going to own it anymore. And the only way they can come to it and get it is if you can't buy it anymore, you've got to watch it on a streaming services. But they didn't realize that in order to keep a streaming service robust, you have to spend a ton of money making new material all the time, which they weren't prepared to do.
This was a multi-billion-dollar mistake, by the way.
It was a multi-billion-dollar mistake because, look, the only reason people go back and streamers, for Hollywood, they thought, okay, we are going to have a monthly guaranteed income, which is something the studios never, ever had before because you never know how much money you're going to make from a movie. It's always a crapshoot. But if you know that you have 100 million subscribers that are all paying $15 a month, you know, what is that? 1.5 billion a month.
What about TV? What about TV? The residuals from each show, the advertising.
Well, this is a different thing. I'm just speaking about
movies.
The studios themselves. So you're making something like a show and you thought that you're going to get, the problem was there's only a finite amount of households on planet Earth that are going to subscribe to streaming shows or a streaming series. And people are only going to subscribe if they're getting programming that they're interested in. Then they started to see churning happen where people would sign up for a streaming service, and then when they were done watching whatever, they would leave the streaming service. So then the studios are like, oh, wait a minute, these people aren't sticking around. So they didn't really anticipate this. And so now that's why you're seeing Disney put out like The Mandalorian on physical media. They're trying to eke out as much money as they can. But in terms of if you want to go even further, the reason that the industry, the Hollywood industry, especially when it comes to streaming shows, is it used to be a model where you'd make a show and you made a show. Shows were in deficit the first couple of years they were made. They were not making money yet because you have to put out so much money. And then what you would do is you would sell these shows territory by territory. You'd sell it to France, you'd sell it to England, you'd sell it to Germany. And each one of those sales, you're licensing out those shows and you'd make a ton of money. And if a TV series lasted more than 4 or 5 years, it was a license to print money. You were getting money from all over the world. And everybody who wrote on these shows or produced on these shows was making cash. In 2019, Netflix paid $100 million for 1 year to stream Friends. This was $100 million. This was found money for all the producers and the stars of that show. Friends was done. You know, it was $100 million for a year. That was all money they could dole out and make a fortune from. Suits, the 9 seasons of Suits streaming again on Netflix became their #1 show. And you had all the people that worked on Suits getting all pissed because they didn't. Their residuals were done. They were finished. But the people that owned the show, they were making the ton of money. And the people that were in the show and wrote the show, their earnings stream was over. And they don't, unless you had some kind of equity position in that show, you're not going to get any more money. And so you had people going, I only got $200 when they sold or streamed Suits on Netflix. Well, that was what you signed up for. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. And now you've got the same thing is happening where these corporations are making a shit ton of money off everyone's work. And they don't even have to pay anybody for it anymore when it comes to shows because people are going back and watching these legacy shows that were already made.
60% of all viewership comes from shows and games that are years older.
Yep.
Baggage claim, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. I feel like there's such a shift in the way corporations look at people. Like Robert was saying, that they're just looking to squeeze us out of as much money as possible. And what Robert's experience was with that game he was talking about, I play a lot of games on my iPad all the time. It's the way I, really relax. And every single game is this microtransaction type. It's you download it for free and then you have to keep paying. Otherwise you're watching endless ads and something like that. What's interesting is specifically around ownership of property. That is one of actually the fundamental tenets on which America was founded. And in fact, the initial line in the Declaration of Independence was supposed to be, life, liberty, and property. Property was considered such an important idea to the founders because they believed that a person couldn't truly be free until they had their own piece of land on which they could exist without anyone telling them anything. And at that time, this is something that whenever people look back on that line, on that sentence, on the importance of property, they think that it was a way to gatekeep, to keep people out of a specific club. People always say, oh, it was only like these white men who owned property that were allowed to have any say. But it wasn't like that. Property was actually at that time designed to be that it should be really cheap. It should be accessible to everybody. Everybody should have the opportunity to own property. And but it was this belief that you need to have skin in the game in order to feel invested in the country that you're part of. You should be a property owner in order to have say in what's going on with the ongoings of governance. And that has now completely transitioned to these big corporations are trying to push us into these perpetual renters. It's becoming, in so many places, it's becoming impossible to own. I'm in my mid-30s and I'm, have a dual income household and we live in California, and it's impossible for us to even think about buying yet. It's impossible. We're like so far away from it. And
what's your rent? I just want to know, what's your rent in California? I'm in Canada, so
$3,000. But I live in San Francisco, and that's for a 1-bedroom. Yeah, and it's a 1-bedroom, and it's considered a deal.
What?
Yeah, it's considered a deal. It is. I'm not saying. Wow. I mean,
that's more than I paying mortgage a month on my house.
That's what I was about to say, and I'm in Texas. It's just wow.
And it's I could choose not to live here, right?
How can that be worth it? I don't understand. Why do you San Franciscans like what part of that is this is have you never lived outside San Francisco that you're terrified of leaving the confines of the Bay Area? I don't even understand this.
Let me put that in comparison real quick, just for the audience to understand. I was just in Nashville, Tennessee to attend the Jordan Peterson lecture. And I was talking with some people about the real estate there because it's growing so quickly.
Yeah, it's
The
exploding.
amount of money you're talking about in the suburbs of Nashville, a person could probably have a 5 to 6 bedroom home on 3/4 of an acre for that amount per month. So that's just as an reference to the audience.
Right, I understand, but let Baggage Claim finish what she was saying.
I'm sorry for cutting off. I apologize.
Oh no, no worries at all. And just to answer that question, like that's a fair question. Why not leave? And I think that's a question a lot of people talk about. But I've lived in California ever since I moved from India. I've lived in California, and that's for almost 25 years. No, sorry, 20 years. And my family is here, my friends are here. I could go to Nashville, I could go somewhere else, and then I will go through what I already went through once in my life, which is where I'll go and I'll know nobody. I'll have no community. And what's the point of life if you're just going to be alone somewhere, right? Yes, your rent is low, but you have no one to rely on to help you raise your kids, to have, friends to be around. So that's really the issue. Otherwise, I would be happy to not be paying this amount.
What you're saying is it's home. It's your home.
It's home. It's home.
I got you.
Yeah.
But there's something that you mentioned earlier where you were saying like how we started as a nation, right?
Yes.
Where to own property is one of the tends to make you free, but we look how it's transitioned today with this whole WF mantra and the way they're pushing us. But how many of us, I had this conversation for the 20th time over the last month. Do y'all hear whistling?
Yeah. I do.
I hear like a bird or something. There's
Yeah,
like a bird
I think that's
someone's
me. I
window.
apologize.
There's got to be a story to this one, man.
Lovely sounds of the suburbs.
Where's the parrot?
Sounds
Where's
so
the parrot?
peaceful.
Joe?
I'll try to mute myself when I'm not blabbing.
No problem. So the thing is, I've had this conversation, I think 50 times, and I've always wanted to make a video about it. I haven't yet, but I wondered, it's like, so one of the biggest dreams in America is to own your home, right? Get your home. And then I'm like, because my granddad, he raised me, he's like, don't rent, you pay rent, you want to own something. So you get to the point, okay, you get your home and you pay it off. And then I'm like, if you don't pay your property tax, they take it away from you. So you don't really own it, do you? You're just renting. Everyone's just renting. Yes. I don't know if that's the way I viewed it. I'm like, I don't know why no one has ever, like a politician has said, we need to, yes, you can pay your property taxes. We can come up with a penalty. But to me, I always thought growing up that when you finally owed your home, that was your castle. No one can touch it.
It's weird because my family back in Bosnia, over there in Europe, we're Serbians, but they live in Bosnia. It doesn't matter. Anyway, my grandfather made a home there where my aunt and her family lives in. They haven't paid taxes or anything on the house. I think besides like electrical, sewage, that kind of stuff. They don't pay any taxes on the home for, I think, since the day he made it, which was like 40 years or something, which is crazy to think, right? Like my home here, I live in Alberta.
Greece was the same where my family was originally from until I think they had joined, until I think it was the mid 2000s and because of the EU and regulation. But sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. So like I live in Alberta and like she's like how Baggage Claim is saying her house is $3,000 a month. Like to me, that's like, holy crap. Because I bought this house in 2021 for like $219, which is like impossible to buy anything in a lot of places, not just in America, in Canada too. I remember during COVID, I looked up my family's old home in Ontario just to see. My parents sold that house in 2007 for $350, $340. That same house looks like crap now. I saw the inside of it on like a tour thing online. Same house sold for 1.1 million.
Yeah.
So like it's just completely out of whack. So like a lot of people my age, like I'm 31. Most people my age, they can't own homes. It's just impossible, right? The only reason why I can own a home is because of like certain outside factors, but it's very hard.
But it's true though, because everyone who is Gen Z now and who aren't already made, whether because they locked out or because they have family who can help them out, they're screwed now. And it's not just in California, it's across the board. Of course, you have some exceptions here and there. But on the whole, in populous areas, the pricing market is now, or put it in a different way, it now requires more annual salaries to buy a house or even an apartment than it did during the Depression. This is the dirty little secret that we're not being told. But when you take away the factor of technology, we all have smartphones and stuff like that, We are now in an economy where you now need 2 stable incomes in order to acquire a house. This wasn't the case 100 years ago. Then one regular laborer could actually buy a house and support an entire family. We are worse off now. This economy right now, not just in the US, but the US, of course, has crippled the economy worldwide that comes from America.
I agree.
You know what, Andre?
It's worse off now than during the Depression 100 years ago. That's the final thing I want to
I mean,
say.
the 1950s, you could have a father take care of the entire family. I mean,
yeah, that ended in the 70s.
What's even more disturbing is if you look at a lot of the houses that are being built now are owned by corporations. Or corporations are actually buying up these large tract homes that developers are making.
BlackRock,
and all this, and it's kind of crazy when you look into that. So when people want to rent, you're renting from a corporation. But I wanted to say something quickly. Like this software that I'm using right now is a software I've loved called Wirecast.
Okay.
I've used it for 6 years. I bought it, I downloaded it, and I have it in my computer. And when they would upgrade it, they would upgrade it. A couple months ago, they shifted over to a subscription model. Now, if I were to upgrade my software that I owned, I would now it would make me pay a subscription model every month. I would have to pay a fee, which has happened with all of our software. It doesn't matter what it is now. Everything is a subscription model where before, and everyone willingly pays it. But I bought this software. I owned it. I've been using it for, half a decade. And now I can't upgrade it unless I want to go to a subscription model. Now, they could have made me pay for an upgrade, but if I'm on a subscription model, I'll be there, forever? And I have to pay every month, and I have to pay every month for every piece of software that I use. And it gets to the point where, we're now, a lot of us are using, I do film editing, I'm doing all kinds. I've got plugins. I've got all these things. I might be paying for 20 pieces of software a month. And every time you add something, it's getting to the point where how can you even do work?
Right.
Never upgrade. I want to share one thing with the panel here. I have my smartphone is a Galaxy Note 9, which has been defunct and off the market for several years now. And it's far better than any new smartphone. Like no new smartphone can touch it. They're all worse in every single way. I know because I have compared it. And why does mine still work? Because I never upgrade it. It is still on the original firmware, and it's better for it because no software update is made to enhance things for you. It's to enhance things for them.
Right.
It feels like they want to turn us back into lords and serfs. The corporations are serfs. Yeah. I mean, the corporations are lords, and we're all serfs, and you got to pay and do your duty.
But at least back then you had a lord. You had a guy you could go deal with. Whereas
now you got a board. Now you got a board of directors.
I mean, you can't even.
It's all subterfuge now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. So let me make.
That's what we were.
Go ahead, Baggage.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Just this might be too much of a tangent, but this is what I'm going through on YouTube. I know I've talked to all of you about this offline, where my views have suddenly really dropped. And I specifically over the last 2 months, and there's no person to go talk to, right? There's no one to go and negotiate with and say, hey, what's going on with this platform that I have? My whole livelihood is dependent on this platform. There's not a single human being I could get in touch with. Instead, they just direct me to these, random articles and say, this should help you figure it out.
Yeah,
it drives me crazy. I know we were talking about it, but you can't get through unless you get a manager and you hit that level where they give you one. You can't do that. Let's take a quick break. We're going to read some super chats. I think there are a few questions for the panel, and then we'll jump forward. Because Good Logic, you're here for a while, or you have more time now?
I'm doing my taxes as we do this.
Oh, okay. No, because I want to make sure. I want to make sure because I know originally you had limited time with us.
I can certainly go for like another hour.
Okay, perfect. Well, perfect because I want to go through some of the Disney stuff. Okay, we got the first super chat from Steel Leg of History for $5. George, I'll be getting a new fake leg made soon. I DM'd Mexican Iron Man and tag with a pics of the shirt. I'll be using one of Drunk 3PO. Be blessed. Be blessed, my friend. I've been watching you play Helldivers too. You are taking it for democracy. Oh,
that game's so much fun.
I've been dying to play it, and I just haven't had the chance. But I keep watching everybody else. If I stop watching them, I could actually play them.
2 days ago, I played about 4 or 5 hours straight with like Yellow Flash, Nina Infinity, and that Star Wars girl. And like the time, like we lost track of time. We didn't know, like it was already like midnight. And I'm like, shit, I gotta go to bed. But it's just,
I do the same thing watching y'all play. No, Jim Alaska, my good friend from Vegas that I had met. Thank you, my friend. He gave 20 George the Giant Slayer memberships. Look, that's what helps keep the lights on. That's what helps me keep going, keep moving. It's like, I love what I'm doing. But when y'all do these memberships, we're having, by the way, next Saturday at 2 p.m. till 4 is the next membership stream. And let me know in the comment section or in the chat. I've been thinking about holding one every Saturday. Thank you, Jim. We got Greek Light for $19.99. Go, George. Love your channel. Keep us informed. Better thing than any news program on regular TV. Keep going, Slayer. Thank you, Greek Light. Thank you very much. Angela Richter, member for 3 months. Disney think they are invulnerable. See, they do. You got to watch Baggage Claim's video on that. She just talked about, how Disney is dying. Go check it out. Mr. Buttcrack Media, great to see you, my friend. Member for 3 months. Hail George and panel, and to the chat. Hail to you. We got The Beast 808 became a YouTube member. Welcome aboard, The Beast. Gonna have a lot of fun. The Beast, wow. Thank you. You gifted 5 George Giant Slayer memberships. You became a member, and then he gifted it, so everybody can join in on the. We have Angela Richter gifted 5 Georgia Giant Slayer memberships. Thank you, Angela. I hope everybody picked their membership up. Darth Maul's lower half member for 2 months. That's kind of odd. We just started a little while ago. I already have people who've been for 2 months. I like that. $130 for the full Star Wars Outlaws experience. We're going to talk about that in a little bit.
$170 Canadian.
107. Well, you got Trudeau. It's like Castro's son over there.
Yeah, I trust me.
I'm surprised you're not like breaking into the U.S.
I kind of want to. I'm not going to lie.
Kathleen Menges for $5. Happy member of the following, not a cult type cult. Currently following fellow follower Joe. Hi.
Yeah, that's a reference. My show that I host nightly 6 nights a week is called The Following Program. So people who are members on my channel become followers, and this led some people to think that I'm like the leader of some kind of cult, which I'm constantly stressing that The Following is not at all a cult type of cult.
But does it come with Kool-Aid?
There's no Kool-Aid. There's no spaceships. There's no tracksuits that are mandatory. There's model farm work. There's no squirrel mutilations. No goat sacrifices. No throwing virgins into volcanoes. No smearing blood on the walls. No dancing around bonfires while shedding off clothing to bongo music. It's really in no way at all a cult type of cult.
But those are the cool things. Shouldn't you adopt those?
What was that?
But those are cool things. Shouldn't you adopt those?
I'm just saying, none of that is mandatory. Look, people are adamant that they want on their free time go and throw a virgin into a volcano. That's none of my business. It's certainly not going to be a mandatory part of being.
What about being
Kevin Bacon? Because he was in the series The Following, which is about.
Oh God,
I remember. That's why everyone is calling you a cult.
It's crazy. I'm not the leader of the cult. I'm not.
Sure? Are you sure?
I'm just the host. I am not the leader. I'm a follower, just like everyone else. I'm just the host.
Are you sure you're not on a volcano with naked women throwing pickles at you?
I'm definitely not on volcano right now. I haven't done that in 4 years.
I remember that movie. It was with Val Kilmer, and it was called, I think, Real Genius.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Oh,
you can get it on 4K on disc now.
Are you kidding me?
No, I haven't.
It's out? Oh, I got to pick it up. Martino for 10
Simone.
I love his Star Trek. Offer and demand. The more we are, the more land will cost. Freedom is finite. Every additional person takes away a slice of it. But when we all share in it, we come together with one voice, they can't stop us. That's why these corporations actually, I think, are coming down harder on us, because the fact that people are waking up and they're realizing their competition to achieve their goals, that time is running out. So what I wanted to ask Endymion, and we'll wrap up then this portion with the gaming, is Star Wars Outlaws, like the chat, that comment just mentioned. $130, $170, you said, in Canada?
Yep.
So
what does it entail? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
So in Canada, games are about $80 Canadian, which is about $60 you guys, your American stuff. And then obviously different taxes based on where you live. So where I live, it's about 5% tax. So the main game's $80. I think there's about $110, $120 version. You get, I think the expansion may be involved or just some DLC packs like costumes, that kind of stuff. But if you want the full game, full expansion, both narrative DLCs, if you will, so like bigger story parts. I don't know if they're new areas or whatever, who knows? And then you get all the costumes and whatnot. All of that is $170. Plus you get 3 days early access, which is a really scummy way for a lot of publishers to basically eke out just a little bit more money out of like the mega hard fans who just can't wait. You know, like, oh, if you pay us like an extra $20, you can play 3 days early. And you're like, I can't wait. And then they pay for it, right?
But this is for Mam Solo, right? This is for the one where that they butchered this series.
Yes, they
and
ruined
the $200 version make your character attractive.
Yeah, exactly. It was great. I was on Flashcast last night, and we had Grums on, and we were all talking about it. And it's in even the way, like, because everyone knows like Grums, he used to work at Blizzard. He did World of Warcraft and StarCraft and Diablo and all these things.
He's one of the most important developers of the last 20 years, but
don't
not
say that to
readily admitted.
They'll lose their minds.
Oh, I know. They'll lose their minds. He's the guy who saved World of Warcraft in its development.
Well, talk about Grums. Well, that's what I want to talk about is, well, you go ahead, finish.
Well, yeah, what we were talking about with Grums was that, you know, a lot of these, there was this one developer, he goes by Iron Stylus on Twitter. His name is Michael Marcino, I believe it is. He used to work at Riot Games, which means League of Legends, and he had this really huge thread saying how, oh, we can't make realistic women because of lighting and all these things. And then everyone just kind of replied to him and said, like, Eastern developers have taken real life actors for years now and translated them perfectly into video games. So everything you're saying is not true, because look at like Death Stranding from Hideo Kojima. Everything he has in that game, even the new one, Death Stranding 2, he has Elle Fanning in it. Looks just like Elle Fanning.
Yeah.
Right. So everything this guy's saying is like, what are you talking about? It's like they're
Look
making
at
them
sports
ugly
games.
on purpose.
They've got 400 NBA players that they individually scan
or
their heads.
the UFC games or FIFA, whatever the hell you want. And then you look at also just in Star Wars terms, like just to keep it towards Outlaws, Mam Solo looks horrible.
I've ever heard.
Well, here it is.
Exactly.
We have Mam Solo.
Yeah, look at that. Come on. That's like an alien human hybrid. Like the woman's actually attractive. She's genuinely attractive woman. Like I can't believe you can look at that and say that's her. You can't. Right? But then here's the thing. If
So
you
people know this is the actress. This is the one they cast on, and this is what they turned her into. Correct.
Yeah, go look up Cameron Monaghan, Cal Kestis from Jedi Fallen Order. And that disproves all of this, because that's also made by a Western developer, Respawn Entertainment, which is made by former Call of Duty devs. Look at Cameron Monaghan. He was in shows like he was in what's that show called that everyone liked? Oh man, I can't remember the name
What's
of it now.
it about? Tell me what's it about.
A giant family. There's a drunk father.
Oh, Shameless.
Shameless. There you go. The redhead kid. That's Cameron Monaghan. Thank you.
He's in the Bear. He's in the Bear. The chef who's in the Bear.
That was crazy how he just gave you six words of a description, George. No, I was
same thing. I wasn't going to say it, but I thought
he's not in the Bear. He's not in the Bear though. He's not in the
No,
Bear.
he's the younger kid, right? He's a younger.
Wait, are you talking about the younger one who was in Jedi? Because Shameless is the one with. Oh, he's got two kids. You had the redhead who's in Jedi.
You're thinking of Jeremy Allen White. I'm talking about
the other son. Kid. Oh, the ginger one, the one who was gay. And Shameless is the one. Yeah, I got you. Okay,
both the ginger kids in Jedi Fallen Order. You look at his face and how they translate it. It's one to one. It's perfect.
So what is the problem with game developers? You just said, and I would like to hear what Baggage Claim has to think. What do you think when someone takes a woman like that? You take a model.
I'll be right back. 1 second. My girlfriend's at the door. 1 second.
Absolutely, go. And you take a woman like that and then you butcher it up. You think that's just pure ideology, or is it the ideology behind the company that has hired bad talent?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the bad talent is definitely a big piece of everything sort of going on in the arts, is that they're valuing anything but merit when they're hiring. And specifically, I think they're valuing politics. But there's also this other aspect to it that I've been wondering a lot about. Whenever you watch ads these days, so my husband watches a lot of UFC. So that's the only time I come across a lot of ads whenever he's watching the prelims. And I'll notice that all the actors tend to be not particularly good looking. And I think that's something I found very interesting, is that that concept of good looks, of attractiveness, of excellence, of working on your body so you look particularly attractive health wise, it's all now been devalued. Instead, they're more likely the sort of stranger you look, the less attractive you look, the more you're likely to get jobs. Even one simple thing of there's this plethora of actresses with really wide set eyes now. Anne Taylor-Joy is one of them. I guess that's Anya Taylor-Joy. I think that's her name.
I thought it was Anna. Is it Anya? Whichever.
And she's a great actress. I think I actually really like her work. But then Rachel Zegler is another example. There was
Halle Bailey, very wide set eyes. Yeah.
Yes. And so I thought that was sort of strange, is that whole concept of beauty is not as valued anymore. And I think that then funnels into things like this too, is that they're actively trying not to make video game characters look attractive, specifically the women. The whole concept of women looking beautiful has now become a very patriarchal idea, as if to say that if a woman looks beautiful, it's only because she's trying to appease a man, versus just this universal desire to look good, just like men want to look good, right? And that is actually primarily to attract women. Same with women want to attract men. It's this rejection of that. That's why then they're also elevating people like
baggage claim. That's a rejection of symmetry. It's down to even the geometry of the cosmos when they attack that, because beauty is related to symmetry. So when they attack that, you've got to say, you guys really, you're picking your target. You hate biology and you hate geometry. Well played. Way to take on small targets.
There was actually a Naughty Dog, an anonymous Naughty Dog artist. The other guys that make The Last of Us, Uncharted, Jack and Daxter. I love those games. Anyway, and they were basically kind of a whistleblower on this a few months back. I made a video about it. And he was saying that essentially the reason why game developers, not just game developers, really like all forms of entertainment, the reason why they're making female characters uglier on purpose, it's to essentially appease the trans crowd, which I think is ridiculous, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Essentially, they want to make the female characters less curvy because a trans woman might not be as curvy. They want to make the male characters not as muscular or strong because they don't want to, offend the trans men. But the thing that I find is that what they should do instead is they should make idealized versions of characters for everyone. So if you want to have a trans character, trans woman, right, for example, if you're making the character on purpose ugly to appease to trans women, isn't that more offensive to trans women than to give them an attractive trans woman, character in a video game, or a trans man, for example? Because at that point, you're failing everyone equally. You're failing the men because the men aren't getting what they want. They want the Conan, the barbarians and stuff. You're failing the women because they want to have, the sexy Stellar Blade Eve characters or whatever. And then you're also failing the trans players because you're saying that the only way you can relate to a character is if there's some ugly, non-conforming, gender ambiguous character. And it's like, why not give trans people good representation and also give men good representation and women? And that way everyone is in a sense happy and you're not like ruining anything. But instead they make the men and the women worse to appease the trans people. But all it ends up doing is making it worse for everyone, when everyone should just have
give everybody what they want.
Exactly, but they don't want to do that.
Wow, give the customer what they want.
Yeah, you're failing everybody.
I got you.
But there's,
but
I
they
think
don't
also,
want.
yes,
Sorry,
they don't. They don't. Yes, I agree. It's like they don't want to give that. I think there's this rejection of the ideal that's really happening, is that rejection of excellence, rejection of ideal, because we humans, we like to look up to things, we like to aspire to things, but what happens in the process is that there's a level of discomfort there, because you have to recognize where you're falling short. In some ways you could conquer that shortage, in other ways you couldn't, because sometimes people are just genetically blessed, and that's just a reality. And so there's this desire to reject the concept of discomfort, that nobody should feel inadequate, nobody should feel uncomfortable for even a second. So it's like, instead of keeping the standards high and letting people aspire to them, let's bring all the standards to the ground and make everybody feel special.
Well, another thing that I think, I completely agree with you. A thing that I think is even more insidious is that by doing that, no one's going to be good at anything. So the people that are good at things are fewer and far between, which means people are easier en masse to control. And I like this rejection of meritocracy makes no sense to me at all. Like, you know, when it comes to storytelling, for instance, I won't bag on this too much, but I'm looking at Star Trek Discovery as a show. I read an article that a woman talked about how great, this critic talked about how great the show is only because of the representation that Sonequa Martin Green brings to the show. But to me, if you're making a science fiction show like Star Trek that was aspirational, for instance, one of the things about that show is that our institutions in the future, like Starfleet, was a good institution. It was the same way people were utopian, our institutions were utopian. And the first thing that modern Star Trek is doing is saying that Starfleet is corrupt. All of our institutions are corrupt. So it's showing us a future that's no longer really optimistic because
it's only dystopian. Yep.
It's only dystopian, even though it's supposed to take place. And so Sonequa Martin Green is a fantasy character because she's not shown as being a good captain or a great military leader or having any particular skills. She's just magically great at everything. And so it's wish fulfillment, and we're not getting... Our civilization needs to step up and demand excellence. Yeah. We need to go back to a meritocracy because people are lazy. Everybody is content and then they expect everybody else to take care of them. That's why Marxism is so big. Let's be Marxist, so I don't have to get a job, so I don't have to work harder, so I don't have to. I mean, it's amazing to me how I see in Hollywood, where I'm working in the entertainment business, you have young kids who just want to be a producer. Like, well, can't I be a producer? I'm like, why don't you start being a PA?
Right.
You know, and work your way up. I was a production assistant. I got coffee. I knew I was going to get coffee for people and pick up dry cleaning and drop off 8x10s for the first 3 years. But I learned more on one day on a set, my first day on a movie set, than I'd learned in all of film school. You know, you learn by doing. We have no apprenticeship ideas anymore. We have no one's going to trade schools and learning crafts. No one is being called out like, you've got to do better.
But it's the iPhone generation. It's the iPhone generation.
I know. You read Jonathan Haidt. His work is talking about what's happening under our culture. I mean, we need to step up. We don't even have... If you saw what happened yesterday, you know, in Israel with Iran attacking, our military is woefully... We don't have enough people to take care of what we're rapidly seeing our world degenerate into because our kids aren't capable of being a fighting unit.
But it's about history. When we get back down to it, it's history. The iPhone generation. It's like you had a device that came out in 2007. Robert and I talked about this earlier this week. You have a device that came out in 2007 that should have brought us all closer together. But instead of taking that, it created a global echo chamber, in my opinion. And so everybody was out there capturing the moment. Look at my big fish, or look at me at a concert, or look at me on a mountain. But they're not actually living. They're like just going to the places to capture those moments, and that changes how the mind is.
Yeah, because it coincided with Facebook, which was even worse than smartphones. I mean, smartphones on its own is one thing. It's the combination of smartphones and social media. That's the truly, truly toxic mix here. And I also think that relates to what we were talking about. All these ugly ass characters, and why not please the audience? They don't want to please the audience. They have never wanted to please the audience. They want to change the audience's standards of beauty. That's what this is all about.
Yes.
That is that is why all the women suddenly look like... Just look at that.
They look like your next door neighbor, basically.
No, worse. They look worse than your neighbor. They look like their own fentanyl. They
look like...
Apologies to George's next door neighbor. We sincerely
apologize.
apologize.
No, she's next door. Stay away.
That's what I mean.
Drives me crazy.
And just look at the other like women that we've seen go viral in games. I mean, those buck-toothed demons. They look positively inbred. I mean.
Do you know my next door neighbor?
No, but
he is your next door neighbor.
As well. But anyway, point being that when you try to alter that, that's influencing, and it's not really about us, because we have all grown up with proper models and role models
Oh,
of
God.
Aspire 2.
Hell
It's
yeah.
about those who are coming after us when this is what they're being bombarded with. They're being bombarded with Dylan Mulvaney as an idol for women, as the ideal women. That's what's being pushed there. And then you have all of these other characters in video games. It's not about us. It's about those who will be growing up with this.
Right.
And you can just look back at like the kids who have grown up in the last 10 years or so. You have a generation of white kids who don't know anything else because they've grown up being told that they're horrible, evil oppressors, and the only thing that they can do is try to fix the sins of their forefathers, and they're fundamentally evil for not doing that. And that's the only thing they've ever known. And we don't know that because we didn't grow up that way. But for those that are young enough, this is all they know. It's like the same thing with those who grow up and get into video gaming now. This will be all they know. And the beauty with them taking down all kinds of past games, that way they can control the past. And the only thing that you can control it with is actually taking to the high seas, because that's where the reservation.
Well, it's happening. There's multiple articles over the last 3 days that are saying piracy is up for both film and games, and they're like, they want to hold congressional hearings to be able to stop blocking, certain networks. But you're talking about beauty. And we had this week, I think a lot of people already know about this, but maybe the audience doesn't. You had Sylvester Stallone, Tulsa King director and executive producer, rebukes allegations that Sylvester Stallone created toxic environment and insulted background actors. Now, I don't know when this changed, but basically everyone in the chat, what happened is that Stallone is filming season 2 of Tulsa King. If you haven't seen the first season, I made a video on it. It's brilliant. Love it. Great show. Now, they're basically saying that extras, I didn't know they changed them to call them background artists or actors, that extras complained on this unnamed Facebook site that Stallone had gone around and they had ordered extras up for this scene and had basically called like some guy lard ass, another person old and ugly, and ugly. So it comes back around. That Paramount is now supposedly investigating this.
Isn't Paramount on the edge of bankruptcy? Don't they have better things to do? Okay, just checking.
But they initiated
Priorities, Paramount.
You would think so, but they started
bankruptcy, investigate Sly, bankruptcy, investigate. It's hard to decide which one to pick. I don't know.
Well, so yesterday, here it is. Where is it? The Paramount announced, Paramount investigating claims Sylvester Stallone allegedly used disparaging language on Tulsa King, said, according to CNN sources. So what happened was you had the company who's responsible to cast the extras, right? The producer from Tulsa King basically said, okay, you got us the wrong people. Next time, send us headshots before you cast them so we can know. And the director of the casting extras was like, nope. We quit. We don't do that. We don't work that way.
Can we pause 1 second there? Because you forgot something vital from the story that transpired later. Because what actually happened, we need to consider what kind of scene was it that they needed the extras for? Was it just like some random shot with ordinary people in the background and Stallone didn't want those? No. What happened here was 2 things. One, they were reshooting something. Either it was a pickup or it was a reshoot of something from an earlier season. And they are in a location where ugly, fat, and handicapped people do not fare. Because they're in the people for the rich and the famous, especially rich and famous criminals, where wheelchair users and fat people on canes generally don't fare. And you filmed here already, so you want to recreate what you already had. Right, and what you had in the background before that they need to create now are young and attractive people. So that is specifically what was called for. And then this casting lady, she may be wanting to make a statement or something. We do not know. That is speculation. Instead of giving what was specifically called for, she instead sent out old people, fat people, and people with various levels of retardation that will stick out as a sore thumb anyway against this backdrop where this was filmed, because they have no business being there, because they're obviously not sufficiently successful people to be in such an environment in the first place. Plus, in the finished episode, it's really going to stick out because here you have same scene, right? And then you have them talking, young, fit people in the background. Insert from the new reshoot. Oh, suddenly now there's a fat people on canes in the background. Oh, now we're back to the original stuff with like it doesn't work. And that is when the director of the episode said, "Okay, next time you need to send me headshots of the background talent that you want to populate the scenes with. Like, we can't have this happen again." And obviously Stallone was reacting. We don't know that he said anything. There have been conflicting reports. Some people said that he didn't actually say anything. No one heard him say a single thing.
Right.
But despite those reports, I can very well believe him whispering, "What's with all
I
these
could.
Yeah.
I mean, you could, because he comes from a different generation.
You can hear Sly saying, "Hey, he's got man boobs, you know, like what am I supposed to do with that?"
He's like, I'm 80 years old and I work out every day. Look at me. Yeah, no.
And it was the casting lady that obviously screwed up here, because as has been pointed out several places, if Stallone wanted someone fat, old, and on a cane in the background, that's going to be part of the scene.
Right.
And if it isn't, why the hell would he want it? So that's really what's going on here. So the casting lady is the one that she
screwed up.
She screwed up
big time.
Whether willfully or not, we do not know. But she just sent the wrong people. Then she threw a hissy fit about it. Then she basically went on a witch hunt and asked all her agents, "If you've heard anything, if you felt anything, come to me and we'll take it to HR." And then she had one of her friends screenshot this from a closed Facebook group and share it and make it public, and also tip off TMC in the process.
Oh, yeah.
Can
I just say that
Deadline Hollywood should tip it off? Yes, Carrie.
Can I just say that Andre had about 7 quotes of the year in back-to-back succession, and my mind is still blown. I've got to get this all clipped one day from you guys. That was amazing, Andre. Amazing.
It is. Endymion, but that's why I was bringing it right full circle. We went from the Star Wars Outlaws, beautiful woman turning into Mam Solo. She hit every branch of the fugly tree going on the way down. Every character's that way. And now we got Sly Stallone, who's like, I want 25-year-old beautiful looking women, and he's getting people in wheelchairs and who are too heavy.
Hey, you send me a 500-pound man with no legs. What are you doing?
Yeah,
bro?
pretty much. But what's funny is Paramount's actually investigating it. Yet what I find odd is that Alan Ritchson for the last week has been going off on
this is so stupid that he's doing this stuff. This and the Trump thing that he talked about. Like,
I got it ready for you. That's what I wanted to hear.
God Almighty.
So Reacher, in case anybody hasn't watched it, is a really big hit for Amazon. It's beloved by most of America, especially middle America, conservative America, because it's a direct, straight show. Good guys, bad guys, right, wrong, beat the bad guys down, win, morals, character, everything you want. Its star starts coming out, right? And Reacher is basically came out yesterday and he said, cops get away with murder all the time. But a couple of days before that, you had him turn around and just attack the entire audience who has made him successful. He turned around and he said, here we go. I wish I could do this automatically. He goes, Reacher star Alan Ritchson attacks Christians who support rapist Trump. He's their poster child. So I wanted to, remove that. Start with good logic and see what you think about that. How you have one company, you got Paramount's investigating Sly for wanting beautiful people, but then you have Alan Ritchson, whose success is based off of conservatives watching his show, just gets away with attacking everyone.
It's always about the politics of the person when you're talking about who's going to end up being attacked. I mean, that's the nature of the beast that we've seen for the last how many years, if not decades. I mean, if you look at at the end of the day, that's the Gina Carano story right there. She's going to express her politics, and she's going to be attacked. She's going to be attacked no matter what she says. Depending, it's always identity of the individual far more than the message that they say. That's all the more necessary when the messaging that you're saying is constantly changing. So you have to constantly just be otherizing that these are the good guys and those are the bad guys. So if you're in the favored class, you're going to be able to do and say whatever it is that you like, and if you're not, you're going to be castigated as being some enemy, terrible human being. That's just the nature of the beast.
Now, what I want to know is from everyone, but starting with Joe, does it impact you when you have a celebrity or a star goes against your political or ideological beliefs with you're supporting whatever project or entertainment they're offering?
See, this is an interesting thing that I actually was talking on my show last week about Mariano Rivera came out in support of Donald Trump this past week. And I didn't look at that. I cannot believe as big a superstar as he was here in New York. And he was, everyone, he's universally loved by millions of Yankee fans because the guy was just amazing. And a class act, never got in trouble or anything of that nature. And I was like, okay, do you think there's going to be even one person who's going to now vote for Donald Trump because of that? And I don't know that. I don't think it's going to even get one vote for him. But what it does signal to me is that here is a person who's been avoiding who's never found himself embroiled in any sort of political controversy. And he feels enough of a comfort level with the cultural zeitgeist that it's okay to do this without, at this point in time, I think it's a reflection of where our culture is gravitating towards recognizing that a lot of the stuff and the messaging that we've gotten has been empty rhetoric, and that it's okay to work counter to the narrative that our current administration is currently trying to saturate our culture with. So to me, it's less about where celebrities stand, and that they sort of are probably somewhat attuned, especially the ones who try to avoid being politically involved, that when that they're somewhat attuned to where our culture is leaning and swaying. And so I found that to be far more encouraging than the actual endorsement itself, personally.
Okay. Anybody else? What do y'all think? Where do you stand on, like, if a celebrity says publicly is against your personal beliefs or stances?
I think they should just keep their mouths shut and keep making content.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
I think they're in no position to tell normal people how to live their lives because they don't live normal lives. They're completely out of touch with reality. And I think that things like social media in general have actually ruined the concept of the movie star. Because prior to social media, we all thought movie stars were like, well, I didn't really, but whatever. Everyone's like, oh, they're gods. They're bigger than life. And then they open their mouths and you're like, oh, you're a dumbass. That's just what you are. Like, now we know. So for Alan Richardson, for example, like him attacking conservatives, like that is the most moronic thing he could do. Because Reacher is, let's be real, Reacher is being held up by, it's called a dad show for a reason. You know what I mean? And I think what he's doing is just moronic, and it's just across the board. Like you never gain anything from attacking your audience. It doesn't matter who you are or what it is. You never gain anything from it. And I would actually, if I was like, let's say like hypothetically in another world, I was like a Hollywood actor, I would not have social media, like at all. And I would never share any opinions, nothing. I would just work, get my paycheck from whatever movie I'm doing, whatever, and then I just disappear. Don't say anything.
It's because also, these actors are supposed to embody the characters. It's not about them. All their fame is also not about them. It's about the characters that they play and bring to life. And all this attention that they get is because people enjoy that. They enjoy connection with that character. But I think with a lot of these actors, it goes to their heads and they think it's about them and they want to now put more of their personality out there, but that actually works against their craft. And that's 100%. I agree with what Andy's saying, is that, social media has destroyed the concept of the star, and which is why I think Tom Cruise learned that lesson, where the more people got to know him and he realized how much it was, first of all, people were not expecting to know the things that they ended up finding out about him. It felt too out of left field. And so then, since then, after that Oprah interview, he has zipped it up. He does not say anything. No. He does not share anything what's going on with his personal life. He instead just focuses on the characters. He realizes it's all about the characters and he just needs to shut up.
because it ruins everything, right? It's the same thing with games. When you find out that the writers hate you, and you play and you can't even enjoy the game anymore.
You can't enjoy
Movies
it.
the same way and everything else. Like
I can't watch Robert De Niro without feeling disgust.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's like I just picture him just cursing, like, F Trump, and I'm like, it's ruining the idea to watching a movie is you want to be saturated in and forgetting about the personality behind it and just invest in this character. And every time I see his face, and really there's probably a dozen other people at least.
Brie Larson, Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh yeah,
you know,
where it's just like I'm like I can't watch you.
I remember recently, The Rock said he's not gonna
vote for Biden. Support Biden. But I'm dying to hear from our two movie aficionados, from Andre and Robert. Do you think it was better? Like, I remember growing up seeing the movie stars. All you ever heard from them is pushing the movie. I love America. I love Hollywood. I'm having fun. This is the greatest job, my dream job. I'm going to keep doing it. So every time they played a new character, it was kind of like they only had a couple of dimensions to them. So I could buy into it. I didn't hear them until Brando did the whole Oscars thing in '72. I never heard an actor go and Jane Fonda with the whole thing. But what do y'all think? You think about
Robert, you go first.
Robert?
Well, okay. I have a little bit of a different take on this because, as obviously I've worked in Hollywood now for 35 years.
Yep.
And from my perspective, I've directed, I've produced, I've written, and I think great storytelling is very political.
Okay.
You know, we go back to our comic books and people say, I don't like politics in my comic books. I'm like, Civil War, the movie and the comic, the idea of a superhero registration act. Whereas Steve Rogers says, I'm not going to register as a superhero. And Tony Stark's like, maybe you should. That in itself was a political divide that literally, it was very cleverly done, both I thought in the movie and in the comic, that made you think. I mean, when that comic came out, it was whose side are you on? And I thought that was really interesting. And it made me think about, well, I went back and reread the Bill of Rights, because of that comic book. And I think that's the way inquisitive people are. If there's political things brought up in your pop culture, hopefully it will lead people. I don't think this is so much true anymore because people are lazy and don't do this anymore. but it has been pop culture that has made me, specifically the original Star Trek. There's an episode called The Omega Glory where Kirk is quoting from, our great democracy, the foundational, we the people.
Pluribus unum.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree with you.
These are for all people.
I'm with you, but I'm with you there. I don't mean to interrupt you. I just want to add to it before you. I'm not add to it. Ask my question for you. I'm with you there, 100%, Robert. I'm not interrupting you. But does the actor pervert that?
Well, here's
when they talk outside of the character.
Yeah, here's the thing. The problem is, the thing about actors when you hire actors is, if the actor comes with baggage, they can no longer, an actor should be able to play any role that they want. And I've often said that in the case of like Tom Hanks, when Tom Hanks was hired to play the lawyer who was dying of AIDS in Philadelphia, you had Jonathan Demme directing that. Denzel Washington was us. He was the everyman, even though he was a lawyer defending Tom Hanks. Because that movie was made, it brought a lot more awareness and I think sympathy to the gay population that was suffering from the AIDS epidemic at the time. Nowadays, you'd have all these progressives coming out and saying, you can't have Tom Hanks. He's not gay. He can't play a gay character dying of AIDS. Well, the thing is, I don't have the statistics on this, but by Tom Hanks playing that role, I think a lot of Americans and a lot of people around the world that might not have had such a maybe a sympathetic ear or eye or feelings toward the gay community at the time was changed by it, because a guy like Tom Hanks playing that role engendered sympathy in the audience. That's why that movie worked, and so if Tom Hanks was coming out and being very political before he made that movie, I don't know if it would have worked so much, because then the thing about actors is they should be able to play any role.
Correct.
But if you start associating actors with political movements, and there's always been actors that have been political, when Susan Sarandon and Tim Robbins were together, they were very political. Sean Penn has been very political, but he's made that a part of his work as well. the thing is, like, Sean Penn's traveled around the world. He's interviewed people, whether you like him or not. He's also combined his artistic life with a political life. And we've seen it. He's been very outspoken, but we've seen it in his work. And in that case, I think, well, that's interesting because some actors or some creators are exploring politics through their work. But when a guy like Robert De Niro comes out and says things, he doesn't have a political bent. Like, he's not out there producing climate change movies or anything like that. So when he starts railing about how much he hates Donald Trump, which, by the way, I can understand for anybody that lived in New York in the 80s, but I think it's not on brand for him. So
Okay.
I think each person, it depends who they are, I think, because
Okay.
we all have to vote. You know, movie stars are voting too. And I think that everybody should be politically aware. I think the problem that we have in America is we're not politically aware enough. We're not teaching civics anymore to kids.
No.
You know, they're not learning. I mean, the great thing about American democracy is American democracy. You know, habeas corpus. You ask people, what does that mean? They don't even know what that means anymore. I mean, the very basis of our legal system, people are like, oh, that person went to jail and he served his time, but he should be condemned for the rest of his life because they did this thing. Look, if you've gone to jail and you served your time and you paid your debt to society, you get to reset, or at least you should, unless you want to vote. But it's like, we don't even think of it. We don't even live up to the basic premises of this democracy or our republic.
It's a democratic republic.
The Democratic Republic, and people don't know this. And I think what we need to do, rather than be political, is we should understand our political system. And it's like everything else. We should live in a meritocracy, and we should demand excellence from people. We should demand the highest standards, and we should demand that people learn and understand about the very system they live within, and make sure people know it, because we had to know it when we were kids. I mean, hell, Schoolhouse Rock.
Oh God,
I'm
I love
just
that.
a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on top Capitol Hill.
Can I
Now you were
Also, a good education meant that you would study the history thoroughly. You would understand where everything that it would help you get context on where we are today and what we have inherited from the past. Now it's this lens of the past. It's like a woke washing of the past, that everything is looked at the lens of like, well, it's irrelevant because it was all men from a certain class or men from a certain race. So it's a way of just writing everything off as like it's irrelevant, and then propping us up that we're better than them. We have better morals than the people that have come before us. It's like we've destroyed the giants of the past, even though the entire world we're living in is a gift from them, from the work that they've done.
Right. Yep. So you're describing narcissism run absolutely amok. I'll give you my thought real quick on the celebrities and whether they should be political. I think that, first of all, we used to call them movie stars because they were something that you looked up to, and they were far enough away that you couldn't exactly reach them.
They were gods and goddesses.
Right.
Yeah.
So social media has been
American
devastating
royalty
to many of them.
There you go.
Now, what they should do with the political stuff is that I think that the vast majority in the mainstream middle, if you come out and say that you're a Democrat, so what? Who cares? If you say you're Republican, okay, who cares? It's when some of these stars go so far out there and they're abrasive and they're braggadocious and they're cruel to the people who are their consumers. And so you think of the people who, like, for example, Mark Hamill, who comes out with these things that are just so far out there that it reminds you of your great uncle, you know, when you were a kid and somebody told you at Thanksgiving, please don't talk to him. Do not bring up politics because he's awful. And he's only here because he's family. And you don't want those people to be filling in your movies and your TV shows and your social media. And so Mark Hamill can be the greatest actor in the world. He can be a tremendous voice actor. His work with the Joker and on the Last Airbender, tremendous stuff. But he is so abhorrent in the things that he says versus those who disagree. Same thing with De Niro. And that's where that line gets crossed. If you're not savvy, if you're not intellectually prowessed enough to weigh in on something and be kind and generous, then avoid it at all costs, because you come away looking like an ass.
Okay.
I just want someone left?
Yeah.
Robert, he might have a problem with his camera.
Yeah, looks like it.
Can I get on a soapbox for like 90 seconds?
Go for it.
About what Robert was just talking about with respect to civics and the term democracy, because this is something that we're constantly hearing about: saving the democracy, saving the democracy, saving the democracy. And a lot of people, because there's such poor civics education in America, don't understand the significance of the term democracy and why it is that so many people on the right shun that term. And if I get nothing else across to your viewers today, I really I want them to understand this. The term democracy, which we're taught to believe as inherently being good, is not inherently good. That's the problem. In fact, frequently, far too frequently historically, it's actually been used for the most worst evil abuses in history. It's a simple concept. A 5-year-old understands that if there's 7 of us here, that 4 of us can basically decide what we're going to do. And as soon as you get 4 people, you win. That's what democracy is. That whatever the majority is, however slim that majority is, however evil potentially that majority is, that their will is what will supersede and dictate the terms for the entire group. And that's fine if you're trying to decide whether you want to play tag or you want to play Red Rover or whatever. That's perfectly fine there as far as having a pure democracy. But our founding fathers specifically rejected it because they recognized how easily that can be turned toward evil. And if you want to see a democracy that turned toward evil, you can look back at Germany in the 1930s, which democratically elected the worst human who lived in the last 1,000 years. But that was a democracy where they basically came. I mean, it wasn't pure democracy, but it was close enough that they basically said that this is our leader. And the problem with having a straight democracy, and the reason that our founders, hundreds of years before Adolf came along, rejected that, is because they saw historically how democracies were frequently perverted. It gave the majority an opportunity to butcher the minority, to literally take from them whatever they wanted, and they would basically vote laws in that were designed to punish the minority groups and whatever. If you had a pure democracy, if you have a pure democracy, it doesn't just say that it doesn't just enable you. It gives you the might of law, the power of the entire of your military force to basically say we're going to punish the minority because it's to our advantage. It's to our advantage if we take money from them, if we tax them higher, if we give them stricter laws. That's the problem with the democracy. The beauty of what we have is called a constitutional republic, and the reason it's so beautiful, the reason it's so powerful and so important, and what sets us apart from the rest of the world is because our Constitution specifically puts limits on government and says even if a democracy, even if the majority says we're going to do this to a minority, you can't. You're restricted. And that's why it's so important to continually stress that we are not a democracy, thank God, and that we are a constitutional republic which respects the rights of the individual that are not man's to take, but that were endowed by God. And that is why no matter how powerful, how many people come along and say that we're going to restrict someone's freedom of speech or freedom of religion or whatever, and they say we hate this religion, we don't want it, you don't have the power to strip someone of that because of the fact that we recognize that these are not man's rights to take away from another man, but that these are just endowed to us by God, and that government has no right to intercede. That's why it's so critical to reject people who just keep screaming democracy, 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 because they either do not know how dangerous and potentially tyrannical and evil a democracy can be because they're historically ignorant, or they are purposefully trying to mislead you into thinking this is always an ultimate good, even though it is so frequently used for evil.
Well, that was, you said everything I've always believed. I've always looked at, I've always believed in Plato's Republic more, what he saw as a perfect government, kind of like one based on a noble aristocracy where you had a king and a nobility that owned absolutely nothing. They couldn't pass down any wealth, but their children also could not inherit what they had, that each member of the society was able to, like they had the gold spirit, the silver spirit, and the bronze spirit. So if you were born and you went to school and they said, you know, what do you want to do? You want to become, you want a king one day? Let's see if you have this spirit. And you could be the poorest person. You could eventually climb to that position. You'd have to be a soldier. Anyway, what you just talked about, it reminds me in many ways of Alexander Fraser Tytler. I don't know if we talked about this last time. He had talked about the cycle, like a democracy can never be a permanent form of government. And I found his quote that I've been looking for forever and a day, just while we were talking. And he states here, just before we go on, Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. He goes, a democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. It can only exist until the voters discover that they can vote themselves largesse from the public treasury. From that moment on, the majority always votes for the candidates promising the most benefits from the public treasury, with the result that a democracy always collapses over loose fiscal policy, always followed by a dictatorship. The average age of the world's greatest civilization has been 200 years. These nations have progressed through this particular sequence, from bondage to spiritual faith, from spiritual faith to great courage, from courage to liberty, from liberty to abundance, from abundance to selfishness, from selfishness to apathy, from apathy to dependence, and from dependence back into bondage.
Wow. He nailed that one.
Yeah, wow. We can even see
Perfect.
where we are in that one.
Yeah.
And,
200 years ago.
If I can also chime in on the actors here, I
Yes.
just want to make one really big important separation when it comes to Robert De Niro, this Reacher guy, and everyone else who has been opining on matters in which they're not qualified to have an opinion, which is a big problem with our entertainers. They're speaking about matters on which they know nothing. Ricky Gervais, he said this perfectly during this speech at that award show. We basically said that, yeah, all of these people, all of you guys here preaching this kind of virtue, you know nothing of the world. You have less education than Greta Thunberg. but they're basically social influencers, and they take influence. Like, I've done that. Like, I'm not ashamed of it. I harked both VPNs, which I continue to check those out. I'm going to plug it here. Video games I don't necessarily always play myself. And then you have these people that then plug certain opinions. This is what The Rock did in 2020 when he endorsed Biden. He didn't do that because his conscience compelled him to. No, he accepted a big ass check for his endorsement, and then he recorded this video, which I think that he sees in retrospect was bad, because he must have gotten a ton of flack for it. Because what he did there, he didn't do anything political, he did something partisan. That's a big difference. For instance, Star Trek has always been political, but it's only been partisan in the past decade. And that's when it has gone completely off the rails, when there's no longer any humanist messages, because now instead it has become divisive partisan propaganda. And that's a problem with all of these actors speaking out. They're not being political so much as they're being partisan propagandists. And I think that actually is a big issue, and it has repercussions for one, how we see stars. Robert, you mentioned Tom Hanks, and that was absolutely fantastic. That movie, Philadelphia, was a political movie, and it changed the hearts and minds of everyone, because it highlighted an important social cause, and it challenged stigmas. It was a political movie, but it wasn't a partisan movie. This is how you want to be.
It was a human movie.
Hanks, exactly. It was humanist.
Yeah.
Now, Tom Hanks personally, he has later proved to himself to be quite the partisan fellow, and his Q rating has nosedived because of it. So he is not as well liked, because the audience now see him as a divisive character. Not a political character, but a partisan character. Exact same thing with The Rock. No, he's not political.
You're saying partisan, right?
That's
partisan. Okay.
Yes, partisan.
It's the accent.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
It sounds like partisan, Parmesan a little bit, but it's partisan. Partisan.
But it's the same thing with this Reacher guy. And the big problem with it is that, did Amazon agree to this? Because they have plenty partisan shows already, and that's how they get all of their DEI quotas and stuff like that in. Now, a show like Reacher, that's supposed to make money. And this actor here, he just severely undercut this show's ability to make money. I'm positive that over the past week, Amazon will be able to see the decline in viewership. It's going to be a very, very big noticeable downfall on their viewing graphs right there, because it's not just when you're partisan that you that you piss off half the audience. Traditionally, that's true, right? You kind of like have half the populace be lean conservative, the other half lean liberal. I don't know that that's true in contemporary American society. I'm just witnessing from the outside, but I think that the last 4 years have been so bad. And I can just say for myself, I have
things are going swell right now, Andre.
I have never in my life before been directly affected by however an American administration has been run.
Oh, everybody's being affected, Andre.
But now, for the first time, I am being directly influenced by the extreme mismanagement of this current administration. I thought it was going to be bad when it came in 2020. It's beyond my worst nightmares.
Well, I told you not to move to Afghanistan 4 years ago. I told you.
Can you detail like how it's directly affected you? Because I'm curious to hear you explain that.
Well, that's a little bit of a derail. I don't know if George wants.
No, I don't know.
I'm
sorry.
Yeah, you answer. That's fine. He can do it. He can, if you wish.
Certainly. One thing is taxation. The Biden has directly influenced me, even though I am not in America. My viewership is in America, which means that Biden has screwed me over massively tax-wise. Beyond that, it is tanking the American economy, and it was tanked. And what was done with just handing out all this money, tons of people warned against it, that you're going to create hyperinflation this way. That's exactly what happened. And that has direct repercussions for every other economy that is dependent on the Americans. So, for instance, the interest level in my country is right now off the charts. And that is a direct consequence of what has been done by the Fed. So we now have the same kind of problem that you guys have with rising housing prices, rising mortgage costs, and everything like that. It's a direct consequence of the Biden mismanagement.
Yeah, I agree.
It has tanked the entire Western economy. Then, of course, it's Ukraine. I blame the Biden administration for that. That would never have happened under Trump. Would never have happened.
Zero chance.
Zero chance. So, and what did that do? Well, ignore for a moment all of the security implications that all of Europe right now is being flooded by Ukrainian immigrants, which is a massive, massive drain because none of them are getting jobs. They all live on welfare all over Europe. And it's all of us other taxpayers have to pay for that. So that's where all our tax is going, which again has direct implications on the interest levels, on available public services. And it's all worse now, and that's Biden's fault or his administration's fault. But that's one thing. Beyond that, you also have the other effects on the power market, because just look at Germany, who has been the financial engine of all of Europe, the same way that America has been for the Western world. Now, the dirty little secret of the growth of the German economy is access to cheap Russian gas, cheap and reliable power. What happened when all this stuff in Ukraine started, and despite what you have told, there's a reason why Putin did what he did. It would never have happened under Trump, but it did happen under Biden. And what he did, he closed off the gas valves. So that means no more cheap Russian gas into all of Europe. Now we need.
And Andre, they closed down all their nuclear power plants, which skyrocketed
That was also completely insane. But the reason why Germany and France shut down their nuclear reactors is, again, they tacitly assumed that they would have an eternal supply of cheap
Russian gas.
Yep. So now they're coming up back again. We are building a ton of wind things, which are pure scam. They don't do anything, and they're horrible for the environment.
They killed birds, Andre. They do some stuff. Come on,
they're destroying
they kill birds.
They're destroying machines.
But
they also have been destroying the Dover coastline. They keep going.
So then you have the power market, which is right now being drained, and that's even
By the way,
That's
Andre,
because-
I want to be clear. I wasn't testing you. I just wanted. I had a feeling you were going to go down the road that we saw 100 years ago, which is that the recession in America ended up leading to a global recession.
It did then, and it's doing so now.
And it's the same thing a century later.
Yeah.
We had
But it's even
1949, and we
worse.
have it. Yeah.
It's even worse because of the Ukraine thing. So
It
right
is.
now it's so yeah, I knew going in that we're in for a rough 4 years now.
I would recommend folks go check out. You know, they talk about the unemployment rate, and this is like 10 seconds because I know Endymion's wanting to hop in on this.
It's all good, don't worry.
guys. Unemployment rate. It's all you ever hear about. I started thinking, wait a minute. The economy doesn't feel like it's doing well. And if people say that, something is undergirding that, right?
Mhm.
So I went and looked at the labor participation rate, which I think is the better rate to go look at. I just recommend, audience, go check that out. It's historically bad. Go check that out. See how that's going. And that'll tell you, because the unemployment rate doesn't take into account those who have given up or those who can only find part-time jobs.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
No, perfect point. And Endymion, did you want to add? You had something
Yes.
to say. Yeah, go ahead.
Just for a lot of things you guys have been talking about, trying to cover a lot of it. So one was Robert was talking about Civil War and about why that resonated with so many people, the comic book, I mean, even the movie too. And I think the reason why that works and why a lot of political stuff these days doesn't is because they didn't necessarily tell you which side was right, per
That's right.
se. And that's a big problem with a lot of media today, and even a lot of discourse in general, is that there's no nuance when it comes to any kind of political discussion anymore. It's just, we are right, they are wrong. There is no middle ground. And because of that,
100%.
exactly. And that's the reason why, like, also for me, like, one of my big resurgences back into comic books was Civil War and the movie Batman Begins. That's kind of my two big ones. But Civil War to me was great because you could see from both angles why that would work.
And
Beyond
you
that,
had two characters that people liked. You know,
Yeah.
you created a political and ideological divide with people that you already had, well, fictional people that you already admired, characters,
and
you
that's what
already
made
admired.
it interesting.
And you know, one of the things I think that we have a problem with in this country is we tend to demonize people that are on the other side of the aisle. And I've
Yes.
said, look, I'll flat out tell you, I was not a big supporter of Donald Trump, certainly, and I didn't vote for Donald Trump. However, I have always defended the viewership that I have that are Trump supporters. I mean, whether you like him or not, he was president of the United States. And the thing about it is, as Americans, if we support our political system, I've always thought if somebody gets elected, we should try and support them at least while they're in office so something can get done. We've now got such this weird oppositional force that what you end up doing is hamstringing our leadership so they can't accomplish anything. And we have this deadlocked political system that is really hampering. We're going into a period of time, I think the next 30 or 40 years, we're going to need to be able to act decisively, and we're going to need to act collectively as a country, not collectively like collectivist.
And
but
this
I mean,
is my other thing I want to talk about too, real quickly, is that I think it was what Good Logic said about the Nazi Germany and all that stuff, and about how easily, I guess you could say, political sides and stuff can lead to basically chaos and destruction. So my family on my dad's side, especially during World War II, my grandfather, his entire family pretty much was killed by the Nazis, like everybody, right, in the camps and everything. The only reason why he was kept alive was because he knew multiple languages and he was a carpenter. So they kept him around to build stuff. Otherwise, he would have been dead. I wouldn't be born. That's it. So he saw firsthand what happens when one political party, in a sense, gains too much power, and when there's too much discourse, things like, you know, the Holocaust and that kind of thing happens. And the way I learned about this from my family, because he died before I was born. He took his own life because of the horrors of the Holocaust. So from what I learned from my dad's side of the family was that what happened in like Bosnia, Serbia, and all that, especially how they got splintered. It was called Yugoslavia, obviously, Croatia, Serbia, all these places. They all got torn apart because of the war and everything. And I think that's a big reason why I think talking about this kind of stuff is so important, is because I don't want to see history repeat itself. I'm not trying to say that, like, you know, fighting against entertainment is the equivalent of fighting against Hitler. But what I am trying to say is that I'm trying to make sure that
you do your part. You're doing your part.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that we don't repeat the history
Absolutely.
that led to things that kind of leads humanity down a darker future. So if we have to
Entertainment is
ask-
culture. It really
Exactly, yeah.
matters.
Politics,
exactly.
Politics
Well,
is downstream of culture. I mean, that's exactly. I'm going to let you go, but we're going to get into this in a minute. That's what Gina Carano was doing when she was discussing that with Tucker Carlson. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I think why we all sort of fight against this monolithic machine to varying degrees, all different specialities and whatnot, is because we don't want things to repeat themselves or get worse. And I think that's what a lot of people seem to forget. And I think it's more just an us versus them, but it's not really that. And another thing that I remember someone on the panel was talking about was how certain, how one of you guys said something along the lines of how certain, it was the Tom Hanks thing. How if he was today, he couldn't play a gay person.
Mm-hmm.
And how that's another thing that's kind of ruining a lot of different mediums as well, in the sense that I don't know if you guys saw it recently there was an Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think it's a movie that they're making or something. It's like animated. I can't remember exactly, but they went as far as to virtue signal that the character that plays Toph in it, who's like a blind girl, they actually got a blind voice actor to play her. So she's going to have to read her lines in Braille and stuff.
Well, they threw away the beloved voice actors who would have driven massive viewership.
This is how far we have to go. Like now, like you said, like Tom Hanks can't play a gay guy anymore.
Who makes that Endymion? What company makes that?
Which one?
Who makes Avatar: The Last Airbender? This is going to be a great callback.
Oh man,
Netflix.
No, Netflix is
making
the cartoon. I believe is Paramount. Is that correct?
Oh, Paramount.
Oh, is it? There you go. Yeah,
so they're really busy with things that matter.
Exactly, and it's the same thing, right? Like you said, like what's his name, Matthew McConaughey, then technically wouldn't have won his Oscar for the movie where he also played a man with AIDS, right? Because he didn't. Like, when we get to this point where it's eventually like you're gonna have actors who you can't play you can't play a character that has AIDS unless you have AIDS too. Doesn't make any sense. Like the next Professor X is gonna have to be a guy in a wheelchair who's bald. Like he has to be that.
He's a white guy. That doesn't matter anymore.
And have abilities.
Yes,
exactly. True. Yeah, it's just like we're reaching this point where I think identity, let me put it this way: diversity of skin color seems to matter more to Hollywood and entertainment than diversity of thought matters, and I think that's a big problem. And it goes across a lot of things. I guess you could even say in terms of video games as well. Like recently, IGN was saying, we're looking for video people to work at IGN, and I just commented and said, like, are you going to hire anybody that doesn't all think the same? Because for the last 10 years, everyone that works there thinks the same. It's not
They're all going to
interesting.
be replaced by AI, and now we'll be looking for AI voice actors that are cell shaded because they're the only ones who can
and that's
play
what I'm saying. It's like it seems everyone's way too hung up on the color of people's skin.
They are,
instead of realizing that people are more than just that. Like just because I'm mostly white, I'm part Armenian. You could debate Armenian's not really a white person, but whatever. But like I'm a mostly white guy. It doesn't mean that I can't, agree with someone who isn't white. And I feel like that's what a lot of these people are saying. And you see it all the time where, people say, I have in my new video that I'm making right now, there's a GameSpot employee who's saying, if you're white, you have to sit down and listen to people that are not white when they talk.
Well, look at all the crap. I mean,
what an American thing to say.
It's just the opposite. Right? Look at what Billy D. Williams. He put out a statement a week and a half ago, and he has been shredded by the left.
Well, this is because Bill Maher was smoking weed in front of him, and he hadn't had a hit of that in 20 years. So crazy things will happen when that's going on.
But what he basically said is, it goes, Billy D. Williams is okay with blackface because he went basically saying any actor should play any role. He's like, I love seeing Sir Laurence Olivier play Othello. He wore blackface. What's the big deal? He's an actor. He was going on to say that Scarlett Johansson wanted to play, what was it, a tree at one time? Do you know what I'm talking about, Robert?
She was
transgender, right?
Yeah, and it was a very famous transgender person, and she was going to play this role. And the thing is, like Philadelphia, if she was allowed, because first of all, what people don't understand is when you're spending money on a movie, you need to spend money on the people that the audience will go see.
Correct.
You can't hire an actor. This is the fallacy that people seem to think. If you hire the whatever the person's supposed to be in the story. Like if they're a trans person, what trans actor is going to get butts in the seats? What trans actor, and there will be one, there will be a superstar trans actor at some point that people will go see. But at the time, right now, Scarlett Johansson is a high caliber actress, recognizable. People will go see her, and if she played this character, it might have shined a light onto that character and the trans lifestyle in a way that we'd never seen before in popular entertainment. And like Philadelphia, it could have helped people understand, and it could have brought which is what all good storytelling does. It could have brought understanding where there was none. And now, because of activism, that movie never happened. And who knows what might have occurred had that movie been made. So are we lesser for it? I think we are. I think by squelching storytelling, I mean, we have people now that are trying to not only just decide what stories are told, but how these stories are told. And this is fascism, you know, and it's happening in the arts on a daily basis.
So you agree with Williams? He goes, if an actor wants to do blackface or anything, they're an actor. They can do whatever they want.
Well, I would say that there's also a level of polite society too. Like you want to make sure that you're not offending people. I actually, to be honest, I believe in what he said. Okay. I think 100% an actor. However, you also have to read the room, you know, and if you, it's just like, you don't yell fire in a crowded theater. You don't do that. And I think now, if a white actor, first of all, there's a lot of great black actors
like
out
Downey
there.
did it.
But that was genius because he was actually addressing head on the ridiculousness of that whole thing. I mean, it was so Tropic Thunder's genius.
But can an African American play a role that was designed for a Caucasian?
I don't
white
think
girls.
I don't. Yeah, that was funny. I don't think somebody should do that. You know, I think that it comes for me. I'm Mr. Verisimilitude. You know, the whole point for me is when you're making a movie or a TV show or entertainment, the quality of being real. You want to create someone's suspension of disbelief so they believe in what they're seeing. So in my eyes, I don't think if I was watching now, if I'm supposed to be watching a Caucasian actor in blackface portraying, well, Frederick Douglass, for instance, I would never believe it. So you're undercutting the verisimilitude of the story you're trying to tell by doing something like that. So I would never do it.
I just think as long as it's not mean-spirited, it's fine. Like a really great example of this, and like a lot of people agree with, is that look at South Park, right? Matt Stone and Trey Parker. Like, listen to his caricature of a Chinese man and a Japanese man when he talks like "Welcome to Shitty Walk" and all that.
Right.
Oh, right.
It's a white guy playing it, and it's sort of the fact that but he's not doing it in a mean-spirited way, and it's funny. That's a number one thing. Is like, I feel like you can be offensive, if you will, as long as it's funny and it's not mean-spirited. So if someone did blackface, like for example, Robert Downey Jr., but he didn't do it to attack black people, right? He did it to show you how ridiculous it is. So it's not mean-spirited, so it's fine. But if someone were to do blackface and then
you're saying seriously,
yeah, if someone were to wear blackface and then the point of like what they were doing was to make fun of black people in blackface, obviously that wouldn't be okay per se. But I think with
Jimmy Kimmel, basically.
Yeah, or Justin Trudeau.
Gotcha.
Did the Halloween thing.
Well, cool. We're
going to
go through some last super chats because I think there's 2 questions, and then we're going to out, and then Pro's got to get going, and we'll get our last topic. Frank Hammett, member for 2 months. Frank's here. Greetings from Gettysburg. Hello, Frank. Skiz Spivak Esquire gifted 20 Georgia Giant Slayer memberships. I hope you're still here, Skiz. I do not see you, but if you are, thank you, my friend. And we got Steel Leg of History. He gifted 1 Georgia Giant Slayer memberships. Thank you. Yeah, I love when you're always here. Thank you, sir. Eric K for $5. Listen to Baggage Came. She was blessed with brains and beauty.
You'll never make it in Hollywood with that combo.
Vince Clortho.
I need to be further apart.
Vince Clortho for $2. DeGiorgio did rock her role. DeGiorgio did rock. What was that we were talking about, DeGiorgio? I'll come back.
By the way, Vince Clortho is a great name.
Vince
Clortho.
It is. It reminds me so much of Walter White Walker for $5. Anyone familiar with ex-KGB Yuri Bezmenov?
Oh,
seen him multiple times.
It's amazing.
from 40 years ago are eerily on the nose. They are prescient, eerily on the nose. He was talking exactly. I think I showed it to a girl I had gone out with about 6 months ago. And she's like, because she was she was on one side and slowly she came to middle. But I think if I remember, Bezmenov said that a lot of the people who are supporting this social justice movement don't realize that they're being used, and that they're the first people rounded up if they ever accomplish their utopia. Kind of like how the Bolsheviks were pushed out by Stalin.
Well, that's what also social media, our cell phones have allowed bad actors to. We're under attack 24/7 by bad actors using social media and using all the information in our phones to manipulate our points of view. And I mean, this is something that has been going. We all know it's happening.
It does.
And the Russians, the North Koreans, the Iranians, they're all. If you think that's not happening every day, I've got a bridge you can buy.
And I want to add one thing about that, which is super important. Many who see that for the first time think that we are still in stage 2,
right?
Which is the subversion. We are way past that. We are now in stage 4.
For
country being brought to crisis, that was the summer of love. That was the crisis.
Right.
The tanks have already rolled in. So we're in stage 4.
Maybe we can roll it back.
Everything that we see right now with video games and certain flags being placed above the American flag on the White House, which is illegal, all of that is the ongoing normalization of stage 4.
Correct.
Which is why right now you need to take it back because the tanks already rolled in.
By the way, Bezmenov, I don't know if you told me to buy this, but I bought a book that was published in 1956 on the advice of somebody, Soviet Total War, Historic Mission of Violence and Deceit, Volume 2. And it is a book from the government, and it has all of these very famous people writing essays about how we're being manipulated. All of it's happening right now. And this book was published in 56.
Yeah, we're living through it.
This book?
What's that?
What was the title of this book?
It's called Soviet Total War, Historic Mission of Violence and Deceit. And it was by the Un-American Activities Committee. Fascinating book. And Bezmenov, I mean, that playbook, you watch him talk and you're like, well, there it is. Right there.
Oh, he lays it all out.
Lays it all out.
And watching people wake up to that, it's something fascinating because you see it hits them and they start thinking and they pause it and then they wake and then wait a minute, we're going through this. It's chilling. Well, thank you for that. Torgo the White for $5. I'm glad Richmond and the other meat puppets speak out on Twitter because I now know who hates me and thus who to avoid. Good point, Torgo.
By the way, that's one of the strongest arguments in favor of freedom of speech because if people speak offensively, that lets you know where they stand. If you silence people, the only result is that they learn to speak in language that's coded, but they're not changing. You're not changing their feelings about anything. You're not changing their perspective on anything. All you're doing is intimidating them into staying mute, but they're still harboring the same ill will. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people. The point of freedom of speech is allow people not to speak like Mother Teresa and wish goodness and blessings on humanity. It's to allow the most nefarious amongst us to speak freely, and that enables us to either identify them as being terrible people, or perhaps to reassess when they're calling out evils in government that you might not have recognized until they spoke up. That is why we need freedom of speech. That is why when you talk about is it okay for a white person to wear blackface and Endymion was saying it depends if it's funny and stuff like that. From a moral perspective, we need to step away from looking as being morally bad. If a person wants to find it personally if a person has a personal feeling that it's not something that they are comfortable with, that's okay. That's all right. But passing a moral judgment that this is something that should be shunned or something that should be punished or silenced, that is where you start walking down a road towards a fascistic tendencies, which are very unhealthy. So I don't think we're in fascism right now. I think thank God, we're a long way from fascism. We don't, we don't know what fascism is. Thank God. But we are taking way too many steps into accepting a fascistic type of oversight, which is priming us to embrace and accept fascism as if it's not simply okay, but that it's potentially beneficial to society.
I agree 100%
Thank
with that.
goodness Elon Musk bought X, because
Thank goodness.
we were
Yes.
really moving quickly towards a corporate oligarchy and towards fascism.
That changed everything.
I have so many questions for Joe now. Let me get through this and we'll get Pro out of here because I have one. It's just on the tip of my tongue. Hold on. Andrew Honeycutt for $10. Question for the panel. How does one separate art from real life, i.e. Roman Polanski, Woody Allen, etc.? Does the art stand alone or should the artist's history be taken into account? Who wants to pick up that ball?
Such a great
I would
This is
say.
actually very
sorry.
this is
You
actually
go first.
very related to actors speaking out, being hyper partisan. This is part of the same. Sorry, carry on. What you were saying.
Oh, I was going to say, I think it depends on. There's a struggle to separate, art from people you disagree with. That's really going on. For example, with J.K. Rowling, people hate the books because they don't like her opinions on something. I think in that case, you should. If you don't agree with her, I agree with her. If you don't agree with her, you should separate the art. But then in instances like Woody Allen and Roman Polanski, where you don't morally agree, I mean, what they have done is categorically wrong and they have not suffered the consequences for what they've done. I think in that case, if it bothers you morally, you should not support their art. You should not separate it. That's my thought on it.
I don't think you can, personally. If some game developer, comic book artist, whatever, tells me like, I hate you if you think this way, sayonara. I'm not buying your stuff.
Ever.
I hope you fail. Straight
Gotcha.
up. I don't care.
Just like
Straight
who was
up.
the journalist who told Gums that he wanted to kick him or raise money? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, that's on. Let me find it real quick. That's on that Park Place.
Right, but if a video game company, if a game designer had said that, you'd be done.
Yeah, Ryan Easby. Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Used to, you'd be done. I don't know that you'd be done anymore.
Do you guys think there's a difference between a director and an actor, or like a producer and an actor? Because an actor is what we're watching on the screen. So as you're watching him, you can't get away from his face and the ideas that he or she has been expressing publicly. And I'm not saying that this is proper. I'm just saying the reality of the situation is that, so that's why when I'm watching Robert De Niro, I'm much more bothered by Robert De Niro than if he was the one directing the film. Because it's sort of constantly for 2 hours in my face, like this is that a-hole. So and that's why when you have Roman Polanski, it's a weird thing because Roman Polanski, I mean, look, I know what the allegations against him are, and they're terrible. Scandalous against Woody Allen as well. I'm certainly not looking to give a pass. I don't know enough about the situations to weigh in definitively on them, but I certainly know there's a lot of terrible allegations that would give me pause. But the fact that you're not seeing their face, and that perhaps we as a culture tend to be more forgiving and more towards like, well, I kind of want to see that, and it sounds really intriguing to me. So we tend to, rightly or wrongly, give more of a pass to culture that is created that we don't see the person who's so offensive rather than when they are in our face.
If someone hates me, regardless of who they are, actor, director, game developer, whoever, the way I look at it is if I buy their product or watch their movie, it's in a sense validating their opinion and their positioning.
Okay.
And in that sense, I just don't do it. This is why I always tell a lot of my videos, don't attack your audience. If you are a creator or creative of some kind, like, please just keep your opinions to yourself. Just make the game or whatever it is you're making, because all you're going to do is divide people and it's going to ruin it. Like, for example, I love From Software games, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, those kind of games.
Right.
I don't need to know what Hidetaka Miyazaki, the guy that directs those games, I don't need to know what he thinks about Biden and Trump. I really don't. Just go make some cool games, enjoy your money, and just don't do that. Don't ruin what we have here. And I feel like because of that, you're having a lot of people like look at the whole Sweet Baby thing, right? It's all about politics, and now anyone that's connected to it, you're screwed. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, as soon as you attack people and do this kind of thing, that's it. You're just going to create this void.
I think it's the attack almost more than anything else, because no one really typically cares what they believe. It's when they put that in to the market space, when they go, oh, you believe in X, Y, and Z? Well, we're going to attack you. We're going to isolate you.
Exactly. And it's the exact thing we were talking about before about Civil War, right? They don't tell you which side's right. But these days, they tell you our side is right and you are
You're
wrong.
wrong. Yep.
And you need to buy this because you need us more than we need you or something. But in reality, it's the other way around.
Yeah, the gay
It's
need
like
us.
And I want to
With the-
clarify. I wasn't saying what should be, which is what you're focusing on. I was just talking
Yeah.
about what is.
Yeah.
In other words, I think that I'm not saying it should be that way. I just get a feeling that people tend to be far more forgiving if that offense is not in your face, and they try to rationalize that it's okay. I'm not saying that that's morally the right call. I'm simply that's my personal observation as to how the public tends to treat these public figures. So
No, I understand that. I think what was I going to say? I lost my train
I
of thought.
apologize for
Yeah, I just lost my train of thought. I'm trying to think what it was. Someone just cover for me for a second. Let me think.
Okay, well, I got
If I can
Jose A.
remember.
Taco, member for 2 months. Hail, George. I missed you on Hot Toys yesterday. I know I couldn't make it. I saw Robert, and Robert was there with Ass. They looked like they were having a great time.
We were.
Hope we'll be there next time. Let's see what the next one.
We missed you, man. We missed
I
you.
know. God, I wanted to be there, and I have a new figure. I'll show you later.
Dude, I got. You know what? I got to show this since you brought it up. I got I got this Moon Knight figure after I was on with Az. It showed up in the mail.
Oh, really?
So yeah, it's
Is
really
that
cool.
from?
Who is that?
From, it's from the Moon Knight TV series, but I didn't like the Moon Knight TV. I just love Moon Knight, but they have this character in the comic as well.
Yeah.
So this is the
Mr.
Gentleman
Moon Knight, the
Mr.
Gentleman.
Gentleman Moon Knight, which is a
Okay.
great third party figure.
I got a Fright Night. You remember Fright Night, the movie?
Dude, of course.
I got
own that on
the-
4K. I got that disc. You have to have faith for this to
Yeah.
work on me, Mr. Vincent.
That's right. Well, I got him grabbing the crucifix. I'll show you.
Oh, it's the best. Evil Ed. You're
Bob
so
the
cool, Brewster.
I love that movie.
It's so good.
Bob the Lobster for £5. Maybe De Niro thinks Trump stole his Al Capone character from the Untouchables on the campaign trail, hence his vitriol. Great show tonight. Thank you. I don't know what's going on in De Niro's mind anymore. I still haven't seen The Irishman because I was just so pissy at what he was saying. CJ for $5. For those of you who like The Reacher Show but don't like Alan Richardson, just wanted to recommend the books by Lee Child. They are great.
They are
I
great.
read 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Love them. Eric K for $2. Happy birthday, Robert Meyer Burnett.
Oh, man. It's not really my birthday. My birthday is May 15th, but I love that you are keeping this joke going for months now. Every day is apparently my birthday, which I love. On my real birthday next month, I hope you show up.
Heistman, member for a month. Do you think we are in animal farm communism? I think we're slowly going there. Paulus Plain for NOK.
Norwegian krona.
Norwegian krona for 100 Norwegian krona. The modern day has a lot to learn from the past. The sexual innuendo of Ghostbusters 1984, The Gatekeeper, and The Keymaster. I think we did a lot of things back then, much better than we do now.
Gen Z a little bit of that because apparently they're not doing so much gatekeeping and key mastering anymore.
All right. Look at how much crap Sydney Sweeney has gotten in the last few weeks. It's like you hear from critics all over.
I can't help but wish that the Red Sonja movie had been delayed just a little bit longer so that they could have cast her. No offense to Matilda Lutz, who is actually playing Red Sonja, but imagine how big that movie would have been if they had just waited a little bit and cast Sydney Sweeney as Red Sonja. I believe that could.
Oh,
have
that
been
would be
a Barbie level
amazing.
success.
Oh yeah,
that could have been a Barbie level success.
Two big reasons to see Red Sonja. Hell yeah.
Steel Leg of History for $5. George, if you can have Eric K post the link to Fatal J comic. He is a good guy and friend of me and Jay's. Be blessed. Okay. Well,
Fatal
Eric
J's a
K-
good guy. He's always on Flashcast. Yeah.
I know he is. We streamed with him.
Remember? Yeah.
So put up his comic if you can, Eric K. I'd appreciate it. Skiz Spivak Esquire. So you are here. Thank you. Member for 3 months. Hail, George. Hail, everybody. Hail, Skis. Is that it? We got Darth Racer 7,777 for $5. I saw Civil War on free streaming service. Glad I did. It was just boring. The action sequences at the end couldn't bring it up for me. It's 2 out of 10. I'm supposed to go see it tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that
that's
box
it.
office drop is going to be amazing. That'll be a heck of a
That movie got spoiled for me. Grums and Flash.
Grums.
Everybody spoiled it. So I know the
70% drop is what I'm going to predict.
Supposed to be like how much did you say, Pro?
70% is what I think it'll drop weekend to weekend.
We
Wow.
can do. What's it out?
It's a B minus cinema score. So
it was it's their biggest opening by far. A24's
25
biggest
million,
opening.
yeah.
25
Well,
million.
wasn't it? Didn't it have
opening.
a $50 million budget? Wasn't it the most expensive
Yes.
independent? Okay.
Yeah.
Which means it needs to make probably about 125 to break even, somewhere around there.
Okay. Well, Pro, you have to leave us, I gather. So you
I do,
wanna-
sadly. I need to prepare for the Renegade Online show that'll be starting at 6 p.m. Eastern, so 45 minutes from now, folks. Come on over to Valiant Renegade. The water is fine, and we'll talk about Civil War and the box office numbers there. But everyone, thank you so much for the time. It is
Nice seeing you,
a
bro.
wonder to join such a great panel.
Always good to talk with you, sir.
Great seeing
Thank
you.
you to the
Thank you for
audience. Later on.
Have a good day.
Yeah, bro.
Later. Now, my question for the last topic. So everything leads up to Gina Carano. She had an interview yesterday, or it was 25 hours ago, with Tucker Carlson. And I was highlighting a couple key points because we all know what this is about. She was fired from Disney, and then Musk backed her. But there were some interesting points that she made. I mean, she goes through the pain that she was in. I mean, she talks about the fact that she felt she was stabbed in the gut, stabbed in the back. I mean, just brutalized. Hold on, I'm going to bring it up real quick. But before we get to that, as I'm bringing it up, I wanted to ask Joe, because I've been watching your streams. You were talking about how we're not in that time, that fascistic time yet, but there are a lot of signs there. Well, I don't know how to ask an attorney this. I'm just going to ask him.
When are we in those times?
No, it's like, but when I see judges slap a gag order on someone, not allowing them to speak, to me, I've never understood that. Like, especially when you see it happens to Trump every 5 seconds, it appears.
Yeah. So what George is referencing is that I have commenced a lawsuit against Judge Merchan, who is the judge in the New York criminal action that was brought by Bragg against Donald Trump. And he issued a gag order on that on March 26th and then expanded on that on April 1st. And I came in as a member of the press to say that by silencing Trump, you have now infringed on my rights as a member of New York City media, which I am actually a registered member of the New York City press. So there you go.
Sweet.
And that has violated my First Amendment rights to hear from him as to, his perspectives on this trial during this most critical juncture in American history, because we're about to see the trial is set to commence tomorrow, and there's no reason to think it won't. They're going to start picking a jury tomorrow. And I plan on going down to the courtroom and covering it. There's not going to be any TV coverage. You can't get it anywhere. It's against the law in New York for reasons that are baffling and aggravating. It's against the law to record anything that happens inside a New York courtroom. So I will be reporting to my audience about that as it goes on. But at the same time, I've actually brought an application in the First Department of New York's Appellate Division that Judge Merchan's order must be overturned because it violates his freedom of speech and that ends up infringing on my freedom of the press. So this is not really my fight, to be clear. It's not my fight at all. It's really a fight for our First Amendment rights. And I happen to be privileged to be situated in a position where I'm both an attorney and a member of the media.
Both.
I happen to have both of those roles of like, two of the three most evil jobs in the world. and I happen to be admitted in New York. So I'm perfectly primed to actually bring this application, which is why I'm looking to get a TRO to get that gag order removed by the appellate division. I actually thought I was going to have this TRO fully submitted on Friday, but it didn't happen because of a technical issue, which they require me not just to serve Judge Merchan, which I've served Judge Merchan, and just serve Alvin Bragg, the district attorney from Manhattan, who brought these charges, which I've done that as well. But there's a technical glitch that under the statute, I'm required to serve the attorney general, the infamous Letitia James.
Letitia James?
Yes. So I plan on serving her with a copy of my papers tomorrow. And then 24 hours after that, I can make my application to the court to get this injunctive relief and try and get this gag removed. And the reasons that I think that this gag must be removed I think that I break down how his analysis of the case law is that he relied on is so thoroughly flawed that the very cases he relied on specifically Landmark Communications versus Virginia and Shepard v. Maxwell, the 2 cases he principally relied on, that those 2 cases do not just fail to give him a license to endorse this gag. If you read them in their full context, instead of cherry picking a line here or there, which is what Judge Merchan did, they actually say that political speech like this can never be silenced in any way, shape, or form. And he took those decisions and flipped them on their head 180 degrees. It would take me 20 minutes, it's way too long to walk you through the logic behind it, so I'm not going to do that. I also argue that even if they did say that, because we have such high regard for freedom of speech, and it has the standard that the Supreme Court invariably applies whenever we are trying to restrict someone's speech is a standard that the Supreme Court calls strict scrutiny, which means you have to show that there's a compelling need, that we must do this, otherwise there's a real serious problem, and that the remedy of restricting that speech is as narrowly tailored as possible. The only way that my argument is that the only way you can establish that compelling need is if you have an evidentiary hearing where you actually figure out what exactly is the problem. Is it this type of speech? Is it against this person? Is it actually him that's causing these problems by his posts on Truth Social? Or is it maybe the fact that these charges were brought in the first case? And you don't know that for sure unless you have an evidentiary hearing. You don't know that the relief that he's giving, which is very, very broad. He can't talk about any witnesses. He can't talk about anyone in the courtroom. And the only people he could talk about are Judge Merchan individually and Alvin Bragg. But the fact that Judge Merchan's daughter received $7 million from the DNC, he can't mention his daughter without breaking the law. It's astonishing. And that is certainly not, without evidentiary hearing, my point is that you cannot have it narrowly tailored. Both of those elements are needed for a gag order to be constitutional. And that's why I'm bringing this application, because if we allow our freedom of speech to be chipped away at, and those protections of our freedom of speech, that the government has the right and authority to chip away at that, ultimately we will not have any freedom of speech. And that for anyone. This is not about Donald Trump. This is not about me. This is purely about me doing, because I happen to be situated where I am, and the situation is exactly as it is, that I'm the one who happens to be in the ideal position to stand up and say what millions of people, millions of Americans, frankly, every freaking American should be saying, which is that no, we're not, no matter how abrasive or bothered you are by someone's speech, that particularly if it's political speech, that we're not going to allow a court to take the role of silencing that person because they don't like what you have to say or potentially the abrasive nature in which you phrase it. So that's what I'm in the middle of fighting for. I don't know if the appellate division is going to grant it. If they don't, I'll go to the New York Court of Appeals.
And you'll keep going.
And if not, and after that, it would be the United States Supreme Court. But I'm very confident that these gag orders are unconstitutional. And that ultimately at some point along this journey, that I'm hopeful and optimistic that I will prevail. And frankly, like I said, it's not my fight. It's not Trump's fight. It's your fight.
Our fight.
Yeah.
Well, and I just want to chime in as a non-American that it's a really important fight. Because look at what the EU is doing right now. It's the exact same thing, only worse, with how they're trying to take down Elon Musk and X. So it's actually a really important fight that must be fought in America first and foremost. Because if America falls, so does the rest. Like a house.
We are the we are the benchmark for the rest of the world. Everyone tried emulating us. No one gives freedom of speech as much as we do. And frankly, you know, New York State Constitution actually has broader protections than the federal. So this is the beacon of protecting free speech in the entire planet. And if it's allowed here, it is definitely allowed anywhere else on the globe.
Correct.
So that's really what keeps me going here. Because I'm going to tell you, I mean, I know that I see how they treat Trump lawyers, that they lose their licenses and things of that nature. I understand that I'm putting my neck in the crosshairs here, but that's okay, because at the end of the day, this is about this is not just about our contemporary times. This is something which will echo for generations. So
well done, Joe. I'm really glad you're doing this. This is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I echo that. Godspeed to you, Joe. I hope you win and you keep going. Well, we're here with you. Anytime you want to update, please come back. We can just do that. All of us, we can do it together, because I think this is important, because it's for all of us. It has nothing to do with Trump. You know, my grandparents survived the Holocaust. I think I've mentioned it a couple times. And when I was 12 years old, I went to the Thanksgiving Day parade because I used to play bagpipes. But that day I wasn't playing it. I had a cold. So my granddad took me. Well, back then, it's like coming around the corner, the very last group, they were the KKK in the hoods, the whole 9 yard. And I looked at my granddad and I was like, why are they here? You know, typical kid, like they're evil, they're bad. He's like, just a typical child. And I was like, what? He's like, you don't allow them to speak, then one day some asshole's going to tell you not to speak. He's like, I'd rather them be able to talk so you know who they are than be hidden and nobody knows. So I was like, always freedom of speech. I'm an absolutist when it comes to that. I will always stand with anyone. So now we have Gina was talking to Tucker Carlson. Let me get this all done. I suck at technology, just letting you all know. Okay, so there's a point where I found this interesting because we've all in one way or at another time talked about it, whether it's on Midnight's Edge. I've heard Baggage Claim talk about it in their videos and on streams. I've heard Endymion on Drinker and Robert. We've talked about how the studios pull a lot of the strings of what's going on in the movies. Before we get to her argument, here we go.
They said something about me being abhorrent, and
for your anti-Nazi tweet.
Yeah.
So you
for
obviously
being
know
great.
this since you worked in the business, but I mean, people who write about television and movies are directed to the word by the PR departments at the television and movie companies.
Right.
So there's no independent press that writes about the movies or about television.
Right.
Even cable news.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the big cable news websites are all controlled by the PR departments.
Right.
It's true in Hollywood.
And that's really been, so I had my own, had hired my own publicist during, season 2 of The Mandalorian, and they were working with the publicists from the Disney people, and then they were working with the UTA, who dropped me immediately as well.
Of course they do.
And then
your agent, who's there fighting for you.
Yeah, all of them. I mean, and then the entertainment lawyer dropped me.
Of course.
And that the funny thing is, like, the entertainment lawyer, I think, was they would constantly be sending out, hey, we're having this Democrat, at my house, come on over for, raise some funds for the Democrat, party, or whoever the candidate was that they were, and so all of these people just dropped me immediately. And I was like,
people you'd been paying to stand by your side in case there was a big problem.
Yeah.
The second there was a big problem, they fled and denounced you.
Yes, immediately.
May they all rot.
So what I want to ask is the two questions. What do you think about that? I mean, Tucker and her were pretty much saying that all the media critics in the mainstream media, Hollywood Reporter, they would go on. Like, all of them are controlled in one way or another by the movie studios. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I find that so interesting, that concept of having a spine and, so seeing your responsibilities through. You've made a commitment to a person. You're working for a person, even if you don't agree with everything that they say, but you have that integrity to stand by them, especially when they're in such trouble. It's interesting how all of those things seem to be going out of style almost. And the second there's a little bit of heat, people are quick to be like, well, I'm not with this woman. I have nothing. It's like, it's almost like this fear of being lumped in with this person versus saying, like, wait, she believes what she believes. I don't agree with it, or it doesn't matter what I think about it, but she believes that. I'm going to come to her defense because this is America. If we've forgotten that fact, where diversity of thought is important and we should defend that, it's almost, it's like people would rather quickly give in than do any of that.
Well, hold on a second. I think Endymion has to leave. You have to leave, Endymion?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. It was great having you on. Great streaming with you again.
Yeah,
Tell everybody where they can find you. Go to his channel and check it out.
It's one of my dogs. She really wants to go for a walk, and they're pushing me a lot. So
gotcha.
It's okay. So I'm on Endymion TV, Endymion YT on Twitter, because I'm stupid and I didn't call it Endymion TV. So it's YT, and I can't really change it. So that's just the way it is. I do video games, entertainment, movies, all that kind of stuff. And then I randomly show up on people's podcasts like this every once in a while. And yeah, that's what I do. So if you want to watch anything for like video games, especially, that's what I do. So yeah.
Pleasure having you on.
Pleasure meeting you, brother.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, you too.
Good to see you.
Nice seeing you again. Baggage Claim. Nice seeing you, Robert.
Good to see you.
Andre.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Yeah. I'll see you guys probably on someone else's stream at some point. Who knows?
You have to come on ours one of these days. Love to have you on our morning show.
Yeah, just let me know.
Yeah, I'll reach out. Check Twitter. I'll reach out next few hours here.
Okay.
Well,
you guys have a great night.
Yeah, have a great night, great weekend, Endymion.
Yeah,
you guys
Bye-bye.
too. Have a good night, guys.
Bye-bye. So what do y'all think about that, Andre, Robert?
Well, certainly. That's why I always call it the entertainment media complex, because all of the industry trades, they live in symbiosis with the studios, and so do most of the PR agents. Of course, you have PR agents and PR reps which are truly representative, but those are few and far between. Most of them have certain connections, which means that when they pick up a client like Gina Carano, that's the product. That's not really the client. They serve someone else, which is why they all can drop her at the same time, because she went against the heart of the unified complex. And that's when you see who is truly independent, who has no ties to it, and who has a greater allegiance to their true bill payer.
Does that mean like Rod Ebert and Cisco from years ago, where they weren't independent, people like them?
I'm not going to say
not them specifically. No, not them. I'm talking about people like them in like the Hollywood Report, any magazine.
Part of the entertainment media complex that exist in symbiosis with each other.
Okay.
And then you have some truly independent outsiders that have come in and disrupted the system, like us YouTubers, like Nerdrotic, like the Critical Drinker, who suddenly will go straight against that narrative, like us at Midnight's Edge, like you, who will suddenly challenge a narrative that used to be unchallenged. This is the whole reason why I started Midnight's Edge back in the day, was to demystify the whole filmmaking process, but also to cut through the BS of the entertainment media complex, which pushed out some stories that were just complete and total lies, trying to hide what was really going on, until the audience had handed over their hard-earned money on failed productions by people who hate them.
Robert, did you want to say?
Well, I mean, look, I think the whole situation with Gina Carano is we don't understand nuance, and you have to give people, I think, the benefit of the doubt and examine what they're actually saying. We have this knee-jerk response. We can't expect everybody to be political theorists. And if somebody makes a clumsy comparison, you have to look at the intent there. And I think in the case of Gina Carano, you had a mob that went after her when what she was trying to say I thought was readily apparent. And as a Jew myself, I'm like, I got what she was trying to say.
So did I. I got it.
And and because I too have suffered the slings and arrows of people that have misinterpreted what I was saying. Because I mean, if you followed me for any length of time, and my sense of humor, and sometimes I have a very dark, sardonic sense of humor, and some people then, if I say something, I'm like, this is the one thing you're calling me out on? You know, you've been watching me. There's 1,000 hours of my own YouTube show, 2,000 hours. And this one sentence, you're going to now call me out and say I'm this way. So, it's unfortunate that what I don't like about our civilization, and I think Gina Carano is just one small part of it, is we now have an activist culture that likes to burn people at the stake.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And they're looking to do it. And it's terrifying. Because, I used to think that I was a classical left-leaning liberal. I don't think that anymore. I think that my side, or what I thought was my side of the tracks, they're the ones that are come after. They're the ones that are going to come after me first. And I never thought that was the case. My entire reason for being. I say it after every show. I say every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. That's all I say. I say that every single one of my shows, and more and more and more. Nobody wants to listen. You know, if they think that you're going up against them or you don't believe what they believe, they don't just not want to hear it. They want to eliminate you from the world. Right. And that's terrifying, because if we can't talk to one another and listen to alternative points of view, where are we? Who are we? I mean, words are not violence. You know, words aren't necessarily an incitement to violence. Words are words. People are talking. And if we can't engage in impassioned debate, you know, the whole point of debate class when you're in high school was you would have to debate topics that you didn't agree with, but you had to debate them in good faith. Well, that was the way you learned about things. And sometimes you might have changed your own perspective. You know, there's nothing more compelling to me than looking at both sides of an argument. Nothing more compelling, because you learn about people, you learn about your own beliefs. You know, you should be able to challenge your own beliefs, because if you think you know what you believe, then you stop thinking about why you believe things. And that's a problem.
And you stop learning.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. Okay, we've wrapped Gina up. So we'll go around. Baggage claim. Will you tell her? Oh, we got some super chats. I'll read these last three and then we can wrap up. Darth Racer 777 for $5. Communism is fascism, from Benito Mussolini. Thank you for that, Darth Racer. Mariana Barbara for $5. Should Gina's lawsuit go to court? Do you guys think Pedro, Filoni, Favreau, and KK will get called for questioning? Could it be televised? Yes or no? I don't know anything about California. What do y'all think? Think it would go like they televise that?
No, I don't think it's going to go that far.
Think Disney would allow that to be televised?
No.
I hope it goes to court. I really hope things start to come out about what exactly went on. I want to see emails, all of that. I want it to all be opened up.
Federal court is never televised.
Oh, ever?
So, okay. Yeah, they never allow cameras in federal court. So, and I'm pretty sure that's a federal claim. That was brought in California because they want to rely on California statutes. But my recollection is that they had federal issues. So that's never televised.
Ah, okay. Good to know. John Winslow, member for 1 month. Don't have a PS5, but still pre-ordered Stellar Blade. I'll tell Endymion that. Thank you for that. Okay. We had an amazing panel. We're going to start with Baggage Claim. You know, she's at 299,000 subscribers. So try to get her over the edge to get her to 300. Baggage, let them all know where you're at.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. This was such a great debate. You know, we talked about the Constitution. We talked about the Founding Fathers, all these great ideas. It was fantastic. Great way to spend a Sunday. If anybody is interested in content talking about everything that's going on in the entertainment industry and our culture, just a deep dive to try to understand what's the root cause of all this, I don't know, I guess the madness that's going on in our culture. Check out Baggage Claim on YouTube.
Thank you. Andre, Robert?
Yeah. Well, I think Good Logic is in more of a rush, so maybe let him go first.
No, that's okay. We're wrapping up. It's fine. You go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Well, you can find me over at Midnight's Edge. We do streams 3 times a week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. LA time, and for every other time, just check against that. And we also have regular videos talking about movies, video games, mostly movies, and how these are being subverted very often in the name of DEI, also trying to demystify the studio politics and the motivations behind that. So check that out if you haven't done so already.
Joe?
Yeah. Good Logic. I stream 5 to 6 nights a week on my channel on YouTube and Rumble called Good Logic. I'm actually at 95,000 right now.
All right.
And looking to get that play button. And I will, and aside from the lawsuit I referenced, I am going to be covering this trial every day. I'm going to be going down to the courtroom, trying to provide perspective for what's happening there. And this is a case that everyone should be following. I mean, this is a former president of the United States, current presumptive GOP presidential candidate who is facing criminal charges. No person sitting in either of those positions has ever sat for a criminal trial before. And I will be doing my best to give you my legal perspective and my personal takes as to how things are progressing in that particular case. And I urge you to check me out over at Good Logic. And also on Locals is really where you get updates as to where you can find me on show when I make appearances on shows like this, which is goodlogic.locals.com.
Beautiful. Goodlogic.locals. Let's get them up to 100. Come on. Beautiful people. Robert?
Well, first of all, Good Logic. We've never streamed together, but I want to say since I've been on this show, I've subscribed to your channel, and I can't wait to dive into your work.
Thank you.
One of the things I love about coming on George's show is I've met so many interesting people, and this is probably the most high caliber, erudite groups I've been streaming with, and of course, Andre, I've known you for a long time. Baggage, I'm a new fan of yours, so it's been a great show to be on. So thank you once again, George. You can find me. Basically, I do opine about the entertainment business, but I'm really ultimately a fan of storytelling and how storytelling is vital to our culture. It is vital to how we understand not only ourselves, but other cultures, and why I don't want to see storytelling perverted by external forces that, well, get us bad stories. I don't like that. And also one of the things that I'm doing, launching a crowdfunding campaign. I haven't ever launched a crowdfunding campaign myself. I've been a part of them, but I am adapting Max Allan Collins, the man who wrote the book that Road to Perdition is based on. I'm adapting his 19-novel series, the Nathan Heller books. And Nathan Heller is a fictional private detective beginning in the 1930s, and the books span from the 30s to the 60s, but he is a private detective that gets involved in real historical cases and real historical people. And the first 10-episode series is about the assassination of Mayor Anton Cermak, the mayor of Chicago, who was in fact killed in real life. And it might have been because somebody was trying to kill FDR but missed. And of course, Al Capone is in this story. Frank Nitti is in this story. Elliot Ness, the Untouchables, are in this story. And the book is terrific. And Todd Stashwick, who played Captain Liam Shaw on Star Trek Picard Season 3, plays Nathan Heller. So if you are interested, you can support this crowdfunding campaign. And it's really interesting. I just read the first script today. I just got the final first script of the first episode. I was blown away, which you'll be able to download on the crowdfunding page. So check it out.
Where is the link so we can put it up? Do we have it?
It's not up yet, but it's called True Noir, the Nathan Heller case books.
True Noir. As soon as we get the link, we'll put it up and we will share it with everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, chat. You're the best chat everywhere. We have the best moderators, the best guests. Thank you, Lord Thoth. Thank you, Eric K. Baggage Claim, Andre, Good Logic, and Robert. We'll see you again next week. We have some special guests coming along. And remember that to win every battle and stay true to yourself, all you have to remember is that you never bow down, you never bend the knee, always forward.